I have a draft board here.
Oh, no, I remember, trust me.
I think this is draft 5.
Yeah. Yeah. It's happening. All right. So this is draft 5.
It's a little
Murphy right now.
yeah, well, it's actually a little counterintuitive. Normally when things get a little crazy, people floss to US security.
Yeah, I noticed that they're kind of traveling together. And that's never.
Good evening, everyone. We'll call this Board of Finance regular meeting to order for March 30th, 2026. I'm Mike Anderson, the chair. We got Dan Smith, the vice chair, Lou Gingerella, Winona Burdine, Carl Johnston, Gary Anino, Ed McGowan, and Sarah Nelson.
You guys want
Want to start getting up?
to?
We're on to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Comment? Brian?
It's on now, right? Okay. I'm all set.
Page one.
I probably won't be able to get through it all. All right, I don't know how many people listen to the Board of Education meetings, but I did watch the last one there. I think it was their last one. One of the things they said, it kind of confused me. They said they didn't have any direction from the Board of Finance, which kind of surprised me because when I left here, I thought if I was on that, I saw what you guys wanted. You needed reduction. The Board of Education budget's just too high. It seems like every year they come in with a giant budget that's fattened up so they know they can cut some fat. I think there's too much technology in it. There's a good area. I don't agree with kindergarten and young kids all on their computers and buying computers for them. They obviously don't want to touch staffing, even though I believe there's places they could cut because COVID added teachers, they added different ones to the budget since COVID, which was quite a while back, and it's done. There's tech specialists, there's directors, there's a second social worker and a psychologist. I think they added a music teacher and another athletic director. More stipends. This all reflects onto the taxpayer of this town. And one thing I don't think they look at is how much this town can afford. I think maybe they should look at that. I'm going to ask the Board of Finance, just in case the Board of Education doesn't think they got direction, I'm gonna ask them, give them some direction. I gave them direction last time I was here. I know you didn't take my advice, but I said 0%. Simply because what happened last year where they ended up with an awful lot of extra money that they found. And I already said that, so I don't have to say it again. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Sean Murphy, 23 Kingswood Drive. My comments tonight pertain to number 5 on the agenda. And I've talked to Mr. Carlson about this in the past. I had some concerns that possibly all expenses were not going to be included in our town meeting and our referendum. Because of these being pulled out, separated out, the expenses for EBs. And it's, I wanted to read just a basic of a first sentence of a statute that covers it well. Connecticut General Statute, Section 7-348, towns not to contract in excess of, oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. 7 Tech 344, appropriations laying of the tax. And the very first sentence in this statute says, not less than 2 weeks before the annual town meeting, the board shall hold a public hearing at which itemized estimates of all expenditures of the town for the ensuing fiscal year shall be presented. So I have a concern if we're not presenting all of the expenditures. And I think Bob will address that tonight. I think is a separate question. He's recommending a separate question on the agenda to cover it, but I just wanted to emphasize my concern that the townspeople were having a say on the entire budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Chet?
Chet Stefanovich, 35 Button Road. I just wanted to make public comment to the idea that I believe that the Board of Finance should push the Board of Education budget through as presented. I do believe that a number of cuts were made regarding that budget, and I do want to make sure that people listening and hearing these things also understand that those of us on the Board of Education making these cuts are also the ones who are paying taxes in this town, just had our own reval. I personally had an 81% increase in mine, which is well above the average of what people are going to be doing. And a 21 mil will increase my taxes by 50%. So it's not like the people who are making these decisions don't have skin in the game. And I think that it's important to invest in our schools, because I think the reason that my reval went up quite so much is because we have spectacular schools in this town. We have amazing teachers, we have amazing programs, and we have things that make people want to come live in this town, which makes our housing prices go up. So as we're looking at these things, it's an interesting double-edged sword where we're looking at, hey, our revals are going way up. Well, yeah, they are, but they're doing that because people see something that they want in North Stonington. And I think that as we cut programs, and if we are forced into a position where we have to cut teachers, programs, and other things going on, that's going to affect all of that moving forward. So I think that it's important that we invest in our town, and I want to be part of a town that's going to put forward money to support our education and our town functioning as well. So I would just request that the Board of Finance push both the Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen budgets through as presented so taxpayers can make their choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Chet. Mr. Noonan?
Michael Noonan, 32 Meadowood Drive. Good evening. It was wonderful to see some Board of Finance members this past Friday night at the North Stonington Education Foundation Gala fundraising event held at Lake of Isles. Your presence and financial support of that event demonstrates your commitment to educational programs for our schools. and is a positive indicator of your advocacy for the students, teachers, and staff members of North Stonington Public Schools. The Board of Education has worked diligently to reduce their proposed increase from 5.4% to 2.74%, which reflects the difficult balance between fiscal responsibility and community needs. But I stand before you tonight to respectfully ask, please do not make any further cuts. At this point, additional reductions will eliminate essential supports that directly impact students and staff. A cut beyond what has already been made will inevitably lead to larger class sizes, fewer course offerings, reduced academic support, and increased strain on teachers who are already working at capacity. For students, this means fewer opportunities to succeed. It means less individualized attention, fewer electives that inspire creativity and engagement, and diminished support for those who need it most, whether academically, socially, or emotionally. For staff, it means burnout, reduced morale, and difficulty retaining the high-quality educators that this community depends on. North Stonington is proud of its schools. They have consistently demonstrated exemplary performance and are not just a line item in a budget. They are the foundation of our town's future. Strong schools sustain property values, attract families, and build the next generation of citizens and leaders. Budget cuts don't just impact a single year. They create ripple effects that can take years to recover from. Once programs are cut or positions are lost, they are not easily restored. I urge you to consider the long-term cost of short-term reductions. Investing in education is not an expense. It is a commitment to the vitality and sustainability of this town. Not every taxpayer may have a connection to the schools, but I guarantee that every person in this room, when growing up, had someone pay for their education who may not have had a connection with the schools. Please hold the line. Do not make further cuts to a budget that has already been significantly reduced. Let's continue to support our public schools and continue to give students the opportunities they deserve to grow and become productive members of our community and the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Noonan.
Hi, Judy Main, Norwich Westerly Road. Speaking as a parent, I know that everybody's concerned about the budget, but I want you to take a look at the people in this room right now, because those are the people that make a difference. I have 4 children in my house, all of which have an IEP or a 504, and all of them are thriving in the school system because of the reading specialists, because of the math specialists, because of the counselors, because of the paras, and because of the teachers. They're the ones that make a difference, and we need to keep supporting them and supporting our school. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Anyone else in the room? Anyone online? Just raise your hand. Seeing none, we will move on to budget item number 4, correspondence. Does anyone have anything to add to the agenda at this time? I'll just note that we did get an email from Pat Lewis. So you have been heard, Pat. She was asking for taxes to be frozen for residents who have lived here for at least 45 years. I don't know how we would go about doing that, but her concerns are certainly noted. And a lot of it's addressed to the education budget. And so we'll keep those mindful as we proceed. Any other correspondence anyone can think of? Building inspector discussion.
So it's really about fees because we hired a building inspector. So it's about the fees, which is what I asked the Board of Finance for some help on. I give it a lot of thought. Sean did visit me, told me about the statute, and I don't disagree that the taxpayer should know any revenue that's coming out of this town. I also know that putting $300,000 in the budget and not be able to show revenue, just show expense, tells an incomplete picture because they're seeing what's going out, but not what's coming in. I thought about how we handle steep grants. Now, the difference between a steep grant and what we're doing on this is steep grants, we appropriate the money, then we have to wait. We have to do the project, wait for months, maybe years, and get our money back, and we get 80% back. The thing about a building permit is you can't build without a permit, and you can't inspect until it's built. Those things have to happen in that order. So you permit, build it, inspect it. So we know in this particular case, all revenues coming in prior to us spending it. It's the way it has to work. So my thought is, if we did this as an appropriation from the undesignated fund for, say, $300,000, had Melissa put it on the P&L, so now the money's in that bucket of money. We put it as a question at the town meeting, so now the taxpayer can weigh in at the town meeting saying, yes, we approve this $300,000 taken out of the undesignated fund that we know we're going to get back because I have a chance to explain it to the town meeting, unlike a referendum where I can't be in the voting booth with every voter. And the nice thing is, as soon as we get that $300,000 back in, we can put it back right back in the undesignated fund, which will probably be before we even make a payment out of it. So it's really just earmarking those funds ahead of time, going to a town meeting, have it as question 3 to say, would you approve $300,000 to put lock in for a building inspector, independent building inspector for the EB building? When we get that money in, which we know we go coming in before we expend it, as soon as we hit 300,000, put it right back in the undesignated fund, and then let money keep going into that bucket. And at the end of the year, whatever we have left, that goes in back in the undesignated fund. So ballpark, we know we're going to be between 280,000 and 300,000 roughly for that building inspector's fees. And we know we're going to be between 500,000 and 600,000 in revenue. So we're going to almost double the fees. As the building inspector said to me, that the building inspector fees were never supposed to be a windfall for the town. If you're building a home and you have to pay a building permit of $4,500, then you expect the town to do the paperwork, to have a building inspector come to your house, your plumbing inspector, and so on. And that's all part of the fee you've paid. We're lucky on a job like EB where the numbers are so big. The inspection, the building permit alone for the building is going to be close to $300,000 by itself. I went to a pre-construction meeting the other day. The foundation is going to be in May of 26, a weather-tight building by November of 26, and a CO and walk away by August of 27. That's their plan. That was with the building contractors and the inspectors last Wednesday. So it bodes well for us that we're going to be able to get this money in, and then we're going to be able to pay it out and still have money left over. But we're always going to get the money in before we pay it. So I thought using the steep grant model might be the best model. That way the taxpayer can go down to the town meeting. They know where it's coming from. It's not going into the budget where we're misrepresenting the budget by putting it in the budget. But we're still telling the taxpayer there is going to be expense, and this is what the expense is going to be. Just a thought.
Any questions from the board?
So I think I asked something very similar to this last week. And obviously I still don't understand. So what goes into line item A402, which is building official, which has, this is in the revenue, and it's got $110,000 in there for this year. What are those fees that we're collecting? And in 24, 25, it was up to 183.
So the building inspector fees for just regular residents, additions, those kind of things. So those are that's what is projected as typical building inspector fees over the course of the year.
And so those obviously vary because in 24, 25, that was 183. And then we've got 110 and 110 again. So
that's usually, so Cheryl from the building land use department is usually the one who comes up with that part of the budget. And that's what she was projecting for this year. I think we're already exceeded that this year in the year we're in right now. So because of the 70,000 we just get in for the foundation permit for the EB building, but that pushed us past that number already. So that'll be part of a give back at the end of the year if there is a give back at the end of the year.
and so why wouldn't, okay, and so there's like an A4021, which is a new line now that says special project permit fees, new. But so why wouldn't these EB fees just go in that existing line item?
So I asked Melissa to put that in there just in case the Board of Finance said that they wanted this in the budget. But again, as we know, when we look at the budget, we look at expense and not always at revenue. We look at revenue, but the taxpayer doesn't. So to raise our budget by $300,000 and you putting, even if I put 600,000 in the revenue line, but you're not going to see that on, so my budget's going to go up by 300,000. You're not going to see the revenue side of it. Just
So
just
you're
thought it was-
saying that this front page, your expenses are gonna go up by 300,000 and the
Correct.
revenue is not illustrated on here
Correct.
anywhere?
That's correct. And we, up until this point, all the budgets have been involved and I've never seen, I know Lou is advocating to do something on the front page with revenue, but up to now, we've never done that.
Okay, but just legit, like in literal terms, the expenses, the fees would go in one of those lines typically that I'm asking about.
Right, so the building inspector, the building inspector we hire, he's a part-time building inspector, his salary's in there, and then the building permit fees are in there, so that's the offset. And the fees are always more than his salary, but in this particular case,
Yeah, we have-
it's because it's a one-off and the numbers are so large compared to what's normal, and it won't be there next year. It's a 1 year, it'll be in this year's budget, but not in the following year's budget.
And do you remember what was the $70,000 swing from the 24-25 to 25-26?
I don't, when I
I don't
don't.
remember that either. That's a lot of big houses, 70,000. Okay, thank you.
Gary?
So as far as the revenue not being in the budget, this is the same thing the school goes through with not being able to show tuition revenue in their budget, It goes to the town. So I think it's got to go in the budget, like Sean says. You know, it's going to give you an ugly day. I get it, but you're going to have to talk to it.
So it's almost impossible to talk to it when you can't talk to not everyone from town is going to go to the budget, is going to come to a town meeting or come to a public hearing. So it's tough to say, yes, I know we're going to raise the budget by 300,000, but on the other hand, we're going to get 600,000 in revenue. I can't be in the voting booth with every voter. And the 50 to 60 people that might come out in a public hearing or a town meeting will hear that message. But I think if we put it as a separate line in a town meeting and the people there hear the message and vote at the town meeting, and we are a town meeting form of government, it does give the taxpayer a chance to hear the story, vote that evening, and then be done with it. So, and it's not going to be not tracked. As invoices come in, it'll be tracked through QuickBooks and through the P&L. So you'll always, every time we see a P&L, you're going to get regular monthly reports on that money and what's coming and what's going out.
I get it. You had asked for a perspective on this.
Yeah.
And I just, it rang similar to the tuition coming in for the school. That, Christine's made it very clear, hey, we're throwing $450,000, $500,000 a year in tuition revenue, and we don't get to use that against our budget.
Right, so
We're in the same boat now.
well, yes and no. The tuition's coming to the town, right? And they can't show it in their budget, but the
Right.
tuition's coming for the town.
Right.
But there's no expense that goes hand in hand with that tuition. Not unless you said, not unless you.
Let's not go there. That'll be. a
But there
longer
isn't. I mean, you can't get $500,000 worth of expense attached to that $500,000 worth of tuition.
So that's sort of my next comment is, a large corporation comes to do business in this town and we are a part-time building official. If their inspection schedule dictates a higher standard or interaction from the building official, I don't understand why this isn't going on the cost of the permit fees to cover the staff augmentation, unless they're willing to live with what we can approve.
So I think,
No.
I have to disagree, because I think, as I said, when you're building a home and you're paying $4,500, what your building fee is,
Right.
you're expecting town and services to kick in. They're paying exorbitant amounts of money for building permits, and the town services are kicked in, but we have to hire someone to have those services kick in.
But I'm building a home. I have to live with our building officials' part-time schedule. They should also, if they expect a higher inspection rate than we can provide because of the way we're staffed, then they should be providing the staff augmentation funding. I went through this. I can't tell you how many municipalities across the country. We as a corporation would do a large construction project somewhere and the building official would say, look, we can't handle what you need to do. We're not we're not technically savvy enough for what you're building. We don't know what you're building. We can't turn around inspections. We will support you, but we're going to need staff augmentation and you need to foot the bill for it.
So the fact that they're paying close to $600,000 in building fees and we're paying $300,000 for an additional inspector, we have a $300,000 windfall, just approximate numbers. To me, that's telling me they are paying for the inspector because we're having a windfall that's double what we're
Gary,
paying.
I'm going to correct you on this one. With them spending this amount, they expect it.
But this is a negotiation like anything else. And this conversation hasn't been had from what I understand. So I don't know. I mean, do we have an idea when they want their inspections? How frequent?
Yes, they have all that. We've had two
Every day.
different
Why are we approved every day? No municipality can
You are
do that
expe-
anywhere.
You are
And
expected to
ask,
be able to service the trades as required.
ask Electric Boat what they do in the city of Groton. Because that's the municipality I am most familiar with, and we had to pay for additional support to do it. And I'm sure Electric Boat does also. So I don't understand why we're
No,
taking.
Tim's a building inspector in Groton. He
City
disagreed.
of Groton,
and he
completely
disagreed-
different.
But he disagreed with that.
Did he call the city of Groton and talk to them?
I don't know, Gary. But I think, so here we are, we've got another case where we have a wonderful situation happening in town and we want to throw a lot of roadblocks on it, which I don't understand.
This isn't a roadblock. We're also going to kiss off the salary for the staff augmentation, which could be going to the town. Okay. You wanted
I did. That's what
Okay.
we want.
There you go.
I want questions.
so we had this conversation. Tim gave you a perspective from the town of Groton. No one contacted the city of Groton to find out that the building official in the city of Groton does it with EB in their hometown. And here we go down the road.
So he told me they set up a fund and they keep putting money into the fund as they need it because they have so many projects going on. EP doesn't have one project going on, they are here. They have multiple projects. FISA has multiple projects.
Yep.
So they set up a fund and they say, okay, when the fund is getting low, let us know, we'll put more money in the fund to pay for inspections.
There we go.
Correct? Do you agree?
Special projects are different. Those are standard operating projects. If you're doing a new building or a new dry dock or an R&D facility, completely different animal. What the answer you got was for the standard business as usual inspections. You know, we're changing a lighting circuit, we're changing out a boiler or a hot water heater. When you do a special project, you get completely different responses. I'm good.
I feel, Bob, like we're trying to have our cake and eat it too. Like, I feel like if you're going to either put it in the revenue and then put it in the budget line item or don't. Like, I just don't, like, if you think you're gonna get don't leave the revenue out.
And we have to leave the revenue out because if we're not going to put expenses in the budget, we can't put the revenue.
No, I'm
in the
saying
budget.
put the expense in and put the revenue in.
But then.
Think you're gonna get 500 to 600,000 in revenue, put it in there and put the $300,000 expense in. Why would we do it differently than we do everything else?
Because the same reason we don't do it that way with steep grants. I mentioned, Sean's mentioning a while back when we put water lines in the Main Street, which cost over $1 million. That was not put in the budget. I could not find anywhere that was ever put in the budget. We handled it as a separate project. Even though it's revenue and expense, because we're revenue through a grant, we expensed it out. We didn't say to the taxpayer, by the way, your budget's going to be $1 million higher, but that's okay. We're going to get the money from a grant. The taxpayer doesn't see the revenue side. The way our budget's.
I understand that you think nobody's reading the revenue. That's fine, but this is like a math conversation. This is revenue in, expense out. So again, just a perspective. I don't see why we would put expense in and not revenue.
I don't want to put expense in. I want to do a steep grant and do it through an appropriation and then put the money back in the undesignated fund through the.
That's still an
revenue.
expense.
Hmm?
Still, it's going to show up in your budget.
No,
as
it's
an
not if you do it as an appropriation, it's not.
It will go in your budget when you put it in the budget after you appropriate it. So it
After
will
you-
show up next year in the budget
Right.
line and it will look
But
like,
then next year we'll have the revenue to offset it in the budget also.
so just do it from the beginning.
So
Why would it be in the budget next year?
When we go through the budget discussion later this evening with mine and the Board of Finance, Board of Education, and we'll see what the budget number is. Take that number and add 300,000 to it and see what it does to the percentage. What I'm saying is,
Yeah, I know.
it's giving the
I'm
taxpayer some misinformation because the ones who don't come to a meeting, that don't come to the public hearing, are now saying that, well, the budget went up by $300,000 and they're not seeing the revenue that offset it.
But why wouldn't we put the revenue in?
Because who's going to see it? Other than the people, the 50 people that come to the, when you come to the vote.
No, but you're saying don't put the revenue in because somebody's not going to read that the revenue's in there. But the reality is this is a budget. So if you put the revenue in and you put the expense after, you're gonna have to do it after you do the appropriation. It will show up next year when we redo this. Actuals are gonna be different than what the proposed
So
budget is
what
because
if-
you did an
So what if we
appropriation.
put the $300,000 in and the taxpayer votes no on us and no on the Board of Ed because now the budget's $300,000 higher than it has to be because we're not showing the revenue, because not everyone that votes is going to see that document. Only the people that show up at a meeting are going to see it. So now they vote the budget down, you're going to come back and take 300,000, you tell the Board of Ed and the Board of Finance, Selectmen to lower your budgets. Saying if we do it as an appropriation, that's taxpayer money that's built up over the years to give backs and through past taxes. As soon as we get the revenue in, which we know with permits comes in prior to expenditures, just like, unlike steep grant, which you spend the money first, get the money later. But as soon as the money comes in, it goes right back in the undesignated fund. So we've appropriated it and the taxpayers vote on it at a town meeting that say, we agree. The ones that at the town meeting get to hear the whole story, we agree this makes sense. We vote yes, appropriate the money, and then we'll put it back into the undesignated fund when we have the revenue. So I don't know why we want to misrepresent the budget.
It's not misrepresenting. I feel like actually what you're doing is misrepresenting it. Because
No, I
you're worried
don't.
somebody's not gonna see something in the revenue. And the reality is that, it's,
If you want to do it, if the Board of Finance decides that that's what you'd like to do, that's what I'll do. I mean, that's why I came to you for direction, to have you decide.
I think that what Bob is trying to do, we have this huge number that's basically a 1-year expense, just given this project. So if it's an appropriation that comes from the undesignated fund and it's used and it's voted on, it's talked about at the meeting. It's a vote, it's a separate vote on doing that appropriation. It's not in the budget.
it will be.
How?
So once they make the appropriation, it has to go in a line item in the budget. And next year, when we start this budget drafting process again, our budget is going to be $300,000 over what we approved because we did that appropriation. And there's going to be $600,000 in revenue that wasn't predicted. So we are going to have a
Again.
surplus of $600,000 revenue.
Again, which is something that keeps happening.
So when I'm just thinking about the budget, I want the
Yeah.
budget to be right.
Okay.
I want to go back to like the building permit costs, like how are these things calculated? Are they calculated on a square foot of a building? Is that why this thing is
It's calculated on the expenses.
$600,000? So why are the building permits $600,000 for this building?
So it's square footage and cost of building. So
Okay, okay, just that's what I needed to know, because I'm hearing you say this is, we have this slush fund of $300,000 coming in because we're over 300,000, but that's not really true. It's because this is a huge building that they're putting up. And so this is a calculated formula. So they owe us these building fees because this is a big ass building that they're building. And we knew this going in. So those building fees are appropriate. It's not, we didn't charge them 1.5 times knowing that we were going to have to hire a building inspector. We're charging them the 1X, the same as we would have charged John Smith if he was building a peanut shed next door, correct?
correct.
Okay, so I guess I'm missing the point of we're making a lot of money off of this, so we can afford to hire the building inspector, so let's just kind of figure out how to do it. That's not sitting well with me. The building fees are the building fees because that's what our formula is.
Mhm.
And I'm in agreement that the revenue and the expenses need to kind of find where they live in this budget. And I think we need to give our taxpayers more credit that they're gonna look at everything, because let's face it, taxes are gonna be the light of everybody's, or the bane of everybody's existence for the next 3 months. So I think people are gonna look. We have, over the past couple of days, recognized that revenues tend to actually not match what we predict they're gonna match. And this would be another example where if we do what we're suggesting, we would end up with additional revenue based on a proposed amount that doesn't match. So I'm not in agreement with this. I think they need to go where they belong.
Hey, Bob, before you sit back down, refresh my memory on how we came up with the inspectors came up with their fee. Is it based off of a flat fee? Is it based off what the current design is being submitted? Do they cover change orders, increase the scope of the job? How does that all break out?
Right,
Because-
so exactly. So when we did the foundation plan, and he went through that first.
Mhm.
And then that's where we grabbed the $70,000 fee for the foundation plan and building fee. He has to go and see, what some contractors are gonna be using, what plumbing is going through it, how thick is the concrete, everything you have to do to inspect that slab that's going in below the building. And that's how we determine how much the building permit fee was. The same thing will happen with the building itself. Well, the full set of plans coming in, the inspector now will go through that set of plans. We're guessing it's gonna be around 300,000. It could be more, because he has to go through it. Just like if you came in and said, you know, Mr. Building Inspector, I can build my house for 200,000. You look at your plans and go, no, you can't. It's 300,000 all day long, Dan. What are you trying to do here?
Yeah.
So that's what the building inspector does.
See, and so is there a contingency of, which is say there is a large increase of scope? Or there's a large change order that has, because, you know, we've all, Gary, you and I, we've all built stuff.
Mhm.
You're gonna have change orders. How do we handle the amount of extra on top of that? Where's our, like Gary would say, where's our liability on this? Where this could go from, we hire a guy for $300,000, but then it turns into $400,000.
Mhm.
Does Electric Boat pick up the extra money?
So,
on
yeah,
top of that?
if you're gonna build a home, and again, you build it not the way it was on the plan. So these plans are very, unique and they're also, but the specific plans, if you're still gonna start building something that's not on the plan, then the building fee is gonna change, right? The permit fee is gonna change.
I understand. I just want to make sure it's like a T&M job versus a fixed price. He's going there and he's going to say, hey, it's $300,000 and that's it. You know, I'm not doing change orders, anything after that. Hey, we have to.
So he
renegotiate.
estimated, I think it was $284,000 to do the project. So I'm rounded to 300, for math purposes.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that our liability is covered on that in case there's a change, or is it fixed price, or is it more of a T&M job?
So this gentleman and his firm are not only doing, I know they did Great Wolf Lodge, which I know Gary said it's on Southern Main, so they might not have followed all the rules. But they're also doing the Crystal Mall conversion for EB, and they are doing the medical building on Pequot, the London Pequot Medical Building. So it's not like they don't see these buildings before. And what they've told me, this building is a lot less complicated than Great
It's a new
Wolf Lodge
build.
was.
It's a new build. It's not a retrofit. It's a warehouse.
Doesn't have 500 hotels, rooms attached
Totally
to
get
it.
that. Yep. All right, thanks.
So you ought to take it with you. So the staff aug for the building inspector is time and materials contract. Okay. We haven't seen an issue for construction package for the building. We're getting the permits individually. So for instance, we have a foundation permit, but we don't have an MEP, we don't have a structure, we don't know what's going on this thing. So typically, and I know everyone's gonna say, well, we're not like that. Typically, something this specialized of this magnitude, you give the building official a full issue for construction package. So we understand what we're getting into.
Exactly.
So we don't have that.
We had it for the foundation and we don't have it yet for the building.
That's not an issue for construction package. That is just a foundation package. We have no idea what's going on this cement foundation. So it makes it really hard to approve the drawings until you know I mean, you can approve them for X many pounds per square foot loading, but you don't know what's actually going on this. So does it meet what the design criteria is? So I'm a little confused by this.
I don't understand your question, but that's why we're hiring a building inspector who does know this. And he's gonna be going through the plans
All
to,
he can do is look at the foundation and say, okay, you got a foundation that's good for 15,000 pounds per square foot loading. You're good to go. But he doesn't know that what's going on it is actually going to be.
how do we know that?
You get a full package. You get the structural, you get the steel, you get the mechanical, electrical.
So you're assuming you don't know what he's seen. I don't know what he's seen.
No, you told me all he's gotten was the foundation package.
Well, he went through the foundation package to approve the foundation. Doesn't mean he hasn't seen anything else, Gary.
I asked if.
So how could you approve?
I asked you if we got a full set of drawings and you said, no, all we've seen is the foundation. So that's what I'm going off of.
Okay. But I don't think you can approve the foundation without knowing what's going on top of it.
He's got to know the whole thing. That's what I'm saying.
Correct.
So
I do agree with you, and I think he's probably knows more than what I know he knows.
I think the biggest thing is it's not a fixed price, it's a T and M. That gives me a little bit more solace to the whole.
So do we have a general consensus that we want the amount in the budget line item for the inspector? Is that, what's that?
Revenue and expense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes?
Well,
Okay.
I think this is something, though, that I've mentioned before, that given this what I'm saying, then I guess. Anyway, is this thing working now? So this presentation that just shows the expenses just doesn't do justice to what's going on within the entire budget. It isn't just this, the building inspector, it's also the additional income from state aid that might be changing. So it's an incomplete picture. So maybe not for this year, but I do think that we need to examine how we present this. And so individuals in town can see the income, because I do agree that individuals in town would look at this and say, we're collecting $500,000, we're spending $300,000, regardless of how it may appear in the percentages of an increase in budget, that's a good thing. But they don't see that. They can't see that with this. So I guess it's going to be your job to present that in a way that sells it, but I think we should do a better job in presenting that ourselves going forward.
Am I wrong in assuming that we have all talked that we're not allowed to put revenue that we do not have yet in the budget as of this year? So he's going to have to, if you want revenue to match what's going on the line item, he can only give you what he's going to collect this year for revenue, not the full 500,000. So you got to remember that. Next budget.
But as I understood it, the way that it works, we collect the.
Am I wrong, Bob? Didn't you, some of it's in one year, some of it's in the next. So he's going to have to pull out percentage of what he thinks for revenue is going to be in for the permits and put in that whole amount, or even put a percentage of what he's going to pay for that year for that gentleman to inspect. Would be the true, to me, would be the true way of showing it, that one washes the other, and it doesn't change a percentage on us in the budget.
Right, but we collect the money up front before we've incurred the expense.
Right.
So
you might have an overage until he pays
it's
it.
going to, it might actually skew the numbers so that it shows a big positive this year and
So
expenses next
I
year.
would agree that if you want to show some of the income and put the line item in, I'm on board with that on my side.
All right, well, obviously it's going to be part of the town hearing that we present. It's got to be a whole discussion about that, and perhaps we can talk to Bob, this front page, is this front page going to be with the referendum question, just this front page? Or is the questions just at the referendum, are there just the two questions presented?
Usually this front page is part of the, did we talk about this last week? These numbers are written out in the questions.
Right.
Just these numbers.
Right. Okay.
Right? Isn't that what I said?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so do you know what the number would be for expenses for fiscal year 2027?
When he's walking. So doing it this way, it's going to impact the mill rate.
Oh, I know.
So, I mean, it's impacting the mill rate for something that's not going to happen.
It should not impact the mill rate because the revenue will offset it. So there would not be an increase.
You're not collecting it. You're not collecting.
Are
it
we
all year.
collecting at least 300,000 this year?
I don't know.
If they complete that.
When you say this year, you mean the budget we're working on?
2026, 2027 budget. Are we collecting 300,000 this year?
Probably more than that.
Okay, so if we're collecting more than the expense, then it will not impact the mill rate.
Because it's a wash.
We can always do an appropriation later if that's a problem. I don't want to I feel like we're trying to fix the problem before it's a problem.
And it's just Bob trying to get a budget passed that doesn't have 300, that doesn't need to have.
I do, and if Bob hadn't completely continued to say, well, I don't want to misrepresent, I wouldn't have stuck to it because I look at it as misrepresenting. We're going to not include this cost and not include this revenue because we don't think people will understand. Feels like a misrepresentation to me. Like I would be insulted by that, but that's just my perspective. I'm one person on the board.
So the question was, what is it going to carry for the number? I use the quoted number by the building inspector and I have to budget what I think the revenue will be.
Yeah. Anything further on that agenda item? All right. I'm going to allow the Board of Ed to jump in here, and I guess before we do, I just want to, last week we were here on Monday. I think we had 2 hours into the meeting before we were really done with the Board of Ed. And so we didn't have a discussion about guidance specifically. Troy had some things he was going to go over with regard to the maintenance section and had some corrections, I believe. And, I know the Board of Ed was going to meet on Wednesday. I figured we'd give them guidance tonight after they've had, when everything was kind of brought down with the maintenance stuff. And later in the meeting, we had a discussion about the budget process and how it seems it's coming up very fast. And we don't have a lot of meetings in between before we have to go to the town hearing. And Christine asked me the next day, did we ever give guidance? And we hadn't. And so I did a straw poll with the members. We didn't have a meeting. I just asked them what they wanted to do, come in for a budget. And this is on me. We should have done it Monday night. And I apologize to the Board of Ed for not having it out in public. I thought it was important to give you guys a number, and I'm realizing how truncated this period is, and that you were going to be working on your budget on Wednesday. So I did what I did, and I apologize that it wasn't out in the open. And so if anyone has any questions on that or comments, I'm willing. Here I am. I'm willing to take it. All right. Well, and I appreciate the hard work that you guys did last week. I'm sure it wasn't easy, but why don't we discuss what your changes were and, or anything that you want to bring up?
I gave you all a copy of the current budget, the 2.74. We were able to come down. Our original ask was the 5.47. We were able to reduce that. Can you hear me now? Sorry. We were able to reduce it significantly. We went from 884,771. We reduced it by 443,000. A lot of that was maintenance. We finally cleared up the maintenance that you guys had requested. Bob, Troy, Randy, and Alan all got together. Our original maintenance line was like 239,000. However, with meeting with them and switching stuff over to utilities that needed to be switched over, our current budget line is 35,100. We did add an additional $34,788 to our utility line, which you'll see in the new budget. We have not added any additional positions to the 27 budget. We will have savings through attrition, and there are 2.8 positions that are affected by this. However, we have everything that we need. We've spent down our non-lapsing. We were able to fund our technology. We were able to pre-purchase some of the laptops and Chromebooks that we needed out of our current budget. I don't know, what questions would you have?
I got a question on these Chromebooks.
Yes.
Do you have to sole source that from one vendor, or can you go out competitive bid on that?
We get multiple bids for that.
Do you go best and final, best and lowest? How do
We
you-
always go with the lowest price.
Oh. You go the lowest, and do you get a bulk discount rate for buying more? Okay. What's another one?
That's a sign.
When you say you have a reduction of 2.8 positions related to attrition, did I hear that correctly?
It is because we didn't add any new positions and through attrition, yes.
Of the total of the not adding the new positions and the attrition? Is
There
2.8.
is, there are other things affected in that. There will be no increases in positions, and the rest is going to be through attrition.
Okay, thank you.
Can you speak to how you came to the reduction in the insurance?
In our medical insurance?
Yes.
So this is a tough one for me. I actually had to get advice on this. So we are through a consortium, and trending the numbers and trending what's been happening. We were able to realize that instead of adding 2 family plans and 2 single plans, Kathy was able to work the numbers so that we didn't have to add all of that in. We did add the 15% contractual that we're obligated for.
So is this based on your actual experience rate, or is this something that we're projecting that whatever?
So Kathy worked really hard at going over every single staff member that we have who is eligible for the insurance, current ones that don't take the insurance. It's kind of a gamble to not add them into next year's budget, because if all of them all of a sudden opt to take the insurance, there would be an issue. So we have a little bit of a buffer in there for a new hire or for whatever. And then we have the 15% contractual that we have to do.
So that didn't come about as a result of the 2.8 positions that.
We have some savings for
Some of it.
one retiring, yeah.
Some of it is that.
Okay.
Is there a line item for stipends? Is it, or is it embedded in another line?
There is a line
There
item
is.
for that.
I'm looking for it and I'm not seeing it, so
Line 25.
gotcha. Thank you. That's all the stipends. That's all of it.
That's all of them, yes. We just redid our stipend negotiations.
Thanks.
Are you able with a stipend to piggyback stipends, like, or stack them? Or are you alone? You take the highest stipend? Would you say I do A job and B job, but B job has a $2 stipend, but the other one has a 50-cent stipend? How is that? How does that work with the stipends?
Are you asking?
Like if I do the coach or drama, or, I do this activity and I do this other activity, but the stipend for the other activity is $2 and the other one is $1, I can only get the $2 one.
Right.
It's not hourly. It's whatever position, whatever stipend that you're using. You can have
At that
a
time.
cheer coach and a basketball coach and a drama coach all be the same person, but they're three different stipends because it's three different amount of work that you're
But
putting
it's
into it.
only when you're doing that task.
Only when you're doing that task, correct?
Okay. Thank you.
Ham hot. Judy,
Yes.
and I'm gonna pick on Troy, the superintendent's salary, is he in salary central office?
Yes.
Yes, right, and sorry that you're leaving, but at the same time, you guys are gonna try and hire a new person?
Correct.
Would it, being that we have two principals, one vice principal and assistant principal, could we look out and see if we could find somebody part-time to use that would oversee them since they're here all the time, instead of hiring another full-time?
So through the executive search committee, we are exploring all options.
Okay.
Trying to find whatever cost savings we can. So that is still a discussion that the executive search committee is having.
Okay, and then custodial. I think I'm set for a second. Thank you.
This present budget maintains the levels of staffing other than the attrition that you had in the original budget. Is that correct?
Correct. And no additional
Okay.
staff.
And with the two positions that you were adding, the para and the custodian, those are not in this budget. Is that correct?
No,
We're not discussing individual positions.
All right. Understood.
and I would like to point out that our original increase of the 5.47, 4.55% of that was contractual raises with teachers, with staff. And we were still able to get it down to a 2.74. We have completely spent down our non-lapsing. We have pre-purchased teachers' laptops, Chromebooks. We've done everything that we can to get this to a palatable budget. And when Bob and I had spoke, if we take our budget and the town budget and you add them together, it is only a 1.98% increase overall for the budget numbers.
So for next year, then, you will have fewer teachers than you do this year.
Correct.
But as many, the administration numbers haven't changed.
That's correct.
Those numbers have.
So I'll ask the question. Going into let's say, once this year goes past, sustainability. This is something I brought up last meeting. What is the goal for the Board of Ed and for a couple more months? How does the Board of Ed and the school going to be able to sustain? If we could get through this year and then go to the next year and then go to the next year, you always think the next year and then the year after that. Sustainability of this, you went from this down to here, but next year it's going to be just as high, if not higher. How are we going to work through that? And it's not just a this year, it's going down the line.
I agree. Everybody's worried about sustainability. And of course, we want the schools to stay open and we don't want to be a tax burden, as you say, to the taxpayers. But we work very hard at our numbers and we try to keep it to the minimum. And we've done every reduction that we can by all of us working together. This isn't us. This is the economy. It's not that we've decided we want to live large and grand. It's the economy and the prices of everything that's forcing our budget up.
Understand? I'm just throwing it out there as I always look at it, this year and also what's going to come down the line next year. And it's not going to get any better next year. If not, it could be a lot worse. And it's just, I want to make sure that we can sustain.
But it could also be a lot better.
Yeah, I'm good.
It's unfortunate, the educational cost sharing money, ECS money, the timing of that is unfortunate. Because it'd be nice to know like what the town's really getting before you have to decide on a budget. And there is discussion of possibly towns will get more, like North Stonehenge will get more money than $2.6 million for ECS money. And then you could justify allocating it towards the budget, but you just don't know what that revenue will be. But probably a good guarantee is you're going to get $527,000 of tuition money coming in next year, as you got $510,000 this year, which is actually either of those is more than the budget increase we're now asking for. Of course, I understand that's not an increase in dollars. I get that. But if you wanted to look at it in some way, you can look at it that we're actually bringing in more money to the town than our increase ask is.
And we're actually getting ready to vote on another tuition increase, not for this coming budget, but for the following budget, there'll be a tuition increase.
Okay. Additional questions from the board as far as this Board of Ed draft 2? I think, again, we appreciate the work that you guys put into that and to get, I personally was a little shocked that given you had 4.55% of contractuals that you're down to this level. So, I'm pleased with the hard work that you guys put in. Right now, I can plug in numbers that we have at this time to try to figure out whether or not we need to give you additional guidance. And we'll talk about that tonight. I think I need more information from Bob regarding what's going to be revenue and what's going to be expenses to add to our spreadsheet that allows us to figure out what the mill rate is. But I have your number in here and I have, if we have to add another 300, I need to know what's revenue that's going to alter what I'm doing here. And I don't necessarily need to keep everybody here, for the next 2 hours, if that's what it takes to go over this stuff. But when's your next meeting?
April 8th.
8th?
Yep.
Next Wednesday?
Yes.
Okay.
But we're supposed to come in front of you again on Wednesday and I'm not sure why.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're fine. I'm glad we're doing this tonight because Christine had said April 1st and I'm like, I'm glad we're doing it tonight because any questions are answered. And we're meeting on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's no guidance given tonight, there will be guidance given by Wednesday if that's the case.
So I guess for me, one of the things that I'm struggling to try to understand, and I mean, we have the numbers. I just haven't done it line by line, is that through the February report, you guys are ahead by roughly $90,000. Great news. Great news. But that then makes the 26 to 27 budget change look more like $530,000, right? Because the increase
But if you look at January's budget, we had two line items in there for 26,500 for dimmer switches. So we had two separate line items. We backed those out. And that's how the budget increased, but we're using some of that to pre-purchase computers. We ended up backing out the two dimmer switches for the lights.
So how does that get me there?
Troy, do you have that line item? There was, I can pull up the line item, but we actually, it was 26,500. We were projected to be 39,000 favorable, and then taking out the 26,500 and removing those two items, that's how we got up to the almost 90,000. But then we're spending some of that for the Chromebooks and laptops to offset the upcoming budget.
But where do so those Chromebook spends are not in the budget? Or are they? Will they be in are they going to show up in like March, April, or May?
Probably June.
The goal was
June.
to try and have them as close to next year.
Okay, so they'll come back out. So this 89,900 is only a temporary.
Correct. There's going to be at least a 34,500 reduction in that pre-purchase.
Okay, so this 89,900 will be reduced by, tell me the number again.
34,500.
For Chromebooks
Correct.
in June. All right, so that takes us back down to 55 and change. So our delta is still 55 and change after that, with nothing else changing.
And exactly, with nothing else changing, we don't know what's going to happen between now and the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. Thank you.
Any questions specifically on the Board of Ed, but the draft two?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Carlson, you want to come up and tell us what you did?
Just 1 second, Mike. Sorry, before Bob kicks off.
Go ahead.
Are we gonna, knowing that it was a straw poll and it's not binding, how are we gonna give the school guidance? We're gonna do that here tonight?
I said we're going to do it either here tonight or on Wednesday.
Okay, okay.
There will be no straw polls done outside of meetings.
Okay.
Ever again.
No, I'm not worried about that. I want to make sure that they get what they need. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Thanks.
I just want to be able to see his numbers. It's kind of like if we're adding the three, I got to know what's going to be on the revenue side so we can figure out what does this do to our mill rate to say, what's it looking like, guys, and put it in real, tangible terms of, and then, we can look at it in Lou's spreadsheet. We can do I can get the spreadsheet that shows what it does to each kind of $200,000 home that had either a 0% increase, 20%, 30%, 40%. And what does that mill rate do to that particular taxpayer? So it makes it tangible and we can say, listen, you guys, you got a little bit more work to do, or is it something that we think could go to the town as is? But yes, to your question, there'll be any guidance will be decided here in a meeting either tonight or Wednesday. Bob.
Okay, so let's save the 300,000 and the revenues to the end. Let's do what we did tonight we had a meeting at 5:30. So all I can talk about right now is what we did today to get back to where we thought we needed to be. So you'll see, you have a single page that has budget changes summary, March 30th, 2026.
Yep.
That spells out what we did. So we added $106,669 to the revenue side, which is from the Ella Wheeler Farm solar farm, which we talked about. I talked to Alan about the sale of trucks. He thinks two of the trucks we were gonna sell this year, we won't sell until after July 1st. So we had zero in that line item. We raised it to 30,000. So we have net additional revenue of $136,669. Then as far as what we voted on we agreed on these following reductions. Per diem staffing, I talked to the fire company and they were willing to wait a year on their staffing. And then instead of going 40 hours this year, 40 hours next year, 38 hours the following year, they said we'd wait a year and then we'd go 50% of the hours and 50% of the hours. Good news on that is at the end of year 2, we'd be at 66% on the original plan. Now we'll only be at 50% after year 2 under this new plan. Flock cameras, we had a lot of pushback. It wasn't so much, except for Carl, wasn't too much of the financial side, it was more of a privacy side. And what's the state doing and why are they taking all these cameras and why isn't there more guidance? And I think right after the Trooper McCarthy gave his presentation, like the next day or the day after, there was a town that actually put their flock cameras on hold for a while until they could investigate what was going on with them. So I think it's a privacy issue and who actually has access. So because we heard that, we took that out for $7,300. There's 3 areas of money we get for roads. One comes from the taxpayers, 2 come from the state. The first one is LoSiP. LoSiP money comes from the state. When we get it, we have 4 years to spend it. And we come with a 5-year LoSiP plan every year. So if we don't spend the LoSiP this year in expenses, we can spend it next year. And Alan's already told me today, everything we have now, we're going to spend between now and June 30th because we know we're going to have less money next year. That's just LoSiP. The other one is we have $318,000 coming from state aid road from the state. There's no way I was going to cut free money. Why would I cut money that's coming in for free? And the thing is with the free money is if we don't spend it, God bless you. If we don't spend it, we will not get it the next year. They'll reduce us. So I want to spend that to the full $318,000. And the last, we had $50,000 left by taxpayer money to spend on roads, and we reduced that to 0. The reason we did it, we're going to take a 1 year off. Our roads are in pretty good shape. And instead of having $550,000 to spend on roads, we're going to still have $318,000. So we might not chip seal 2 of the roads that we would have chip sealed this year. But again, compared to other towns, our roads are in pretty good shape. Our guys take good care of them. And we'll have enough money to get through this year to do some lining, some chip sealing, obviously pothole fixing and so on. And then next year we'll look at putting some of that money back in. But for this year, when you say, Bob, you need to reduce your budget by quite a bit. And we say, but you can't do it with capital anymore. We changed our way. We said no more capital cutting. So where do you go? So you look at the 2 biggest contributors and it's the highway department and the fire department. So that's where I went. That's why we had those reductions. Sometimes not always easy conversations, but we got to where we needed to be. We reduced Hewitt Farm by $2,500. There's still money in Hewitt Farm now. This has nothing to do with the Hewitt Farm house. That's capital. We still have that money. There's just things to do around with trails and so on. We reduced it from by $2,500. There's still, I believe, $1,500 on that line item. On B30.13, I guess it's reduced I call it the real library. And after hearing your discussion, say, well, we think that the library is going to be closed for some time, so your operating expense can't be the same, correct? And they agreed to a point, but they said, even though we're close to the residents, we're still going to have contractors in there using electricity, heat, water, and so on. And we might even be using more electricity because they'll be running machines and, obviously construction equipment off that electricity. So we had a discussion there with the board. They came back and said, we can reduce it to $82,000 from the $100,000 it is now without going back into our endowment fund more than we already have. So that's an $18,000 reduction. And the last one, land use attorney fee, we reduced by $500. That's a total of $274,517.20 reduced by the Board of Selectmen this evening. We also want to add $1,500 back in for the welfare line. We dropped that from $1,500 to $1. And by the way, Gary, all the $1 are gone. We took them all out because you had asked that. So they're gone.
Are the zeros gone? Because that's where
the $1 and zeros are gone.
Okay.
But they can't be going to something in it from this year, last year, the year before. But if it's clean zero across the board, they could go, and that's what they did. So we're not having any placeholders.
Thank you.
Okay. So with that said, so we reduced welfare line to $1, and something just came up in town. I don't want to get too far into it because it's confidential, but we do have a family that's in need. And we have $1,500 this year. The Board of Selectmen voted this year to give the $1,500 to the Pocahontas neighborhood to buy these people some more time in a hotel until they can find housing. This is 3 out of the last 4 years that we've had to use this money. And I said, I can't in good conscience cut it down to $1 knowing we've just used this. If I didn't get this phone call 2 days ago, I might not have considered replacing this, but now that I did, and we did this twice 2 years ago with a gentleman that was in town for a number of years, and we got him housing, it would be awful not to have this. So I talked to Pocahontas neighborhood by giving them the $1,500, and we never give it to the people, we give it to the organization. They can match that and buy them more time for housing. So that's what we want to do. So we voted to use the $1,500 from this year's budget and put the $1,500 back in next year's budget. It's not going to move the needle one way or the other, but it's good to have. So with that said, if you look at tonight's budget with those reductions, and again, this is the one without the Board of Ed in it, we come to a 3.32% increase. It's $199,712, so a total of 3.32% increase. If you take the $100,000 out of that for maintenance that we're taking from the school, if we didn't have that, we'd be at a 1.56% increase. We'd be under 100,000, be at 99,712, 1.56. I did give you another sheet in your packet, and that sheet is just what would it look like when I put the Board of Ed budget, which I had, the 2.74% increase. I put that in just to see what it looked like. Now, the library money's in here. So I added the 156,550 for the library. We put the revenue back in for the Ella Wheeler Solar Farm. We've got the capital reduction and the government operating. It comes out to a 1.98% total town budget. Again, not the building inspector, so that we add that back in. But without that, we're under a 2% budget. Just the way it is right now before we put that back in. And again, the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen budget is 3.32% or 1.56 without the maintenance. Now, you want to have the numbers. I'm going to put 300, well, it would be 282 or whatever the number is. I got the back of the office. I have what the exact quote was. I'll put that in on the expense side. And there's a line in here because I had Melissa put one in just in case we went this route. And I'll have to estimate what the revenue is. So we know we've got, I can't put the 70,000 because that's already come in and already been done. When we get close to $300,000 in May, I can have her defer that money to next year's budget for revenue, because we've done that with the transfer station before, with transfer station fees. And I'm gonna have to come up with what the exact revenue is, close to it. So we know that it's gonna be close to 300,000 on the building itself, but we don't know what all the subs are gonna be. So every time a plumber, electrician, or HVAC guy goes in there and he pulls a permit, there's a fee to go with that. That could end up anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000 of additional fees. There's gonna be some fees going in on the foundation because there's gonna be some of the stuff buried under the foundation, so that'll increase. But that's not an exact number at this point. So I'm gonna have to give you like a best guess budget on the revenue side and probably a better than guess best budget on the expense side. So probably somewhere close to 500,000 in revenue, somewhere close to 300,000 in expense. But the 300,000
in 26, 27, in 26, 27.
Right. So when I put that 300,000 of expense in, that 199 goes up to 499 and that 3.32 goes up to whatever number that is. So I don't have my calculator with me, but that's the number that the tax rate will be looking at. And the 1.98 will be going up to some other number. So actually the 300,000 is 1.5 times what I have here now for the budget increase. Used to play ball. Middle infield and pitcher.
But again, because we're doing it that way, we need to focus on what's happening outside of that. It's not a true increase in their operating budget as much as it is this one special project.
I know.
So
I mean, I get all the pros and cons that you guys are talking about being transparent and what have you. I just think it's because it's that 1 year, it just creates a false narrative. You know, and doing it as a separate question, it's out there to the public as a separate question. And I think I like the idea. I know, you know, I get what you're saying, like it has to go with, once it's appropriated, it goes into the budget. Unless it's just done on the P and L. And did Melissa talk to the auditors about doing it just on the P and L?
Yeah, they said as long as we tracked it, and they said they could easily track it through the P and L. The thing is, the budget is what the taxpayers will be paying, correct?
Correct.
And if the money is appropriated for a short period of time, the money is appropriated from the undesignated fund, it's coming out of the undesignated fund. It's not coming out of the 26-27 budget. It's coming out of past budgets and past overages. And then as soon as the money gets replaced back into the undesignated fund, the taxpayers never paid a penny. So what the budget's actually saying to the taxpayer, what will you have to pay this year in taxes? What will you have to pay in expenses? And by saying you're going to be paying an extra $300,000, they're not. But I'll be glad to put in the budget if that's what you want me to. But again, I think that's the false narrative. I know Sarah doesn't agree with me on this, but that's the story you're telling that isn't quite a true story, because it's not, I'm not paying any part of that $300,000 out of my taxes. It's coming out of taxes I might have paid 5 years ago that are sitting in the undesignated fund. And then we're replacing those almost immediately with revenue. So again, I'll put in my budget, but when I come up to a 7.25 or whatever the number is, that's going to be a tough budget number to swallow.
So we could certainly vote on it. My concern is that we're withholding revenue that we should be recognizing. So last year, our proposed revenue for 2024, 2025 was 23,158,000. Our actual revenue was 24,145,000, and we have consistently come in short on our revenue. If you go back 10 years, 8 of the 10 years, we're shorting our revenue. Now, I think there's an element of conservatism, which is fine. Like, we don't want to claim revenue we're not going to get. But I'm concerned about, if we recognize that revenue now, we can make budget decisions now. Could we have lowered the mill rate last year, knowing that we were going to actually get 700 or 900,000 more in revenue than we did? You know what I mean? So like, I'm looking at it as a budget exercise. Like, if we do the budget right, then we can make decisions with the right information. And that's my concern.
So I think sometimes post-COVID, we didn't know how the town was going to evolve with all the new housing we've been building, the new winery, the new EB. That was stuff you couldn't guess it was going to come. And as far as I don't know what's happening with ECS funding out of Hartford. We're using the governor's budget. That could go down, could go up. The National Pequot Fund could go up or could stay the same.
But I'm not arguing any of the ones that we don't know are happening. What I'm saying is, we have consistently for the past 10 years not recognized revenue when doing our budget, which means there's decisions that we made based on the fact that we didn't know our revenue was higher. So we could have lowered the mill rate, or we could have done something differently. And that's fine, because sometimes we don't know. But sometimes we do, like in
Sarah,
this
can you
moment.
point out where that happened, where we actually said, we know we're probably going to get 500,000, but let's put it in as 300,000. I don't know any time we've ever done that where we've been conservative. We say instead of 150, let's put it in 130 just in case we don't get 150. And even when Sean was doing as treasurer, doing the short term, the money we were doing at the bank, short term at the bank investing, we would put a number in. He put in 1 year 100,000. We ended up doing 180,000 because we didn't know what we were going to be able to get.
This year, this year you budgeted 80,000 in interest, and you made at like 240,000, which is great. And if that's not predictable, that's fine. One might argue we could have probably predicted the interest we were going to make, but maybe those decisions were made after the budget. My point is that the moment in time where we're making the budget, if we know revenue is coming in and we purposely choose not to put it in there, like, that's a budget problem to me. I'm a Board of Finance member. strictly in my lane, Bob. That's my concern. Sorry, Gary.
I remember this discussion last year and after the dust had settled and we set the mill rate and the budget had passed. For some reason, we got pennies from heaven that went into the undesignated fund. And we all looked at each other and said, boy, it really would have been nice to know this because we would have approached the budget a little differently. We wouldn't have made the cuts we made, or we would have lowered the mill rate. I think that's all Sarah's after, or that's what I'd like to see is a little bit more here and now as far as what we truly anticipate to come when the books close.
So I think that we didn't intentionally underestimate revenue though. So I would rather have that problem than the opposite problem. But then again, because we also have the undesignated fund, which you guys control. And you say, you know what, we screwed up. We didn't expect that much money. So let's give some of it back, which we did by paying off the short-term debt. And you doing your jobs and how do we give that money back to the taxpayer? So that's great that we have that fail safe with the undesignated fund. But if we were doing it the other way, I said, I think we can get 150 in revenue, we only get 120. Now we got a loss of 30,000. That's a lot tougher to explain. Why did you guess 150?
I'm not asking for that.
And I don't, no one's accusing anybody of subterfuge. We're just saying, can we have a little bit better forecasting as to where we're going to end? I'm a little concerned with what happens. And we've all done projects at home. We've all built houses, or what happens when the schedule slips and the fees slip? You know, how's this gonna work year to year with?
So the nice thing about this, Gary, and you being in construction, you'll understand this. A permit happens before building and inspections happen after building. So no matter if it stops, there's no permit because it stopped.
Yeah.
Then there's no inspections because there's nothing to inspect.
No, I'm more worried about change orders or RFIs, all the little bit dribs and drabs that come in that have to, that dedicated resource is gonna have to.
But again, this is not a school building project. This is an EB project.
You forget, I sold them a few buildings.
Yes, you did. I get it. But again, you're asking us to almost be like the general contractor on a building that's not our building.
No, I'm just saying, us as the municipality, if the schedule slips or they have a whopping change because they're changing one of their programs and things stretch out, how do you deal with the revenue and expenses when it goes from this year's budget into the next year? Because it will follow.
It could, right, it could, but I think that the type of building it is, and it's all inside work once the shell's up, and if the shell's up by November, it's pretty much a done deal because it's all inside work after that. And again, you've been connected with so many of these projects. How many of these projects actually do go south like that? I mean, it's.
Every one of them.
Are we talking about, are you talking about years, months?
6 months is acceptable.
Okay.
You're making an argument to keep it off the budget, but that's okay. I mean, I mean, really, yeah, no, you are.
I am doing proper forecasting, saying, if we're gonna do this, how are we gonna deal with it when it
No,
slips?
that's, I'm just saying, from my take, you made a great argument as to why it shouldn't be in.
So it might change, so we're not gonna be transparent. That's ridiculous, Lou. You're on.
Nobody said anything about not being transparent, whether it would be through the P and L, a special project, or in the budget. Everybody's going to see what happens with the money. It's just a question of where it goes and how well it can be managed. That's all. Nobody ever said they're not going to show what happens with that money.
If you manage it in the P and L, it's not in the budget, correct?
Yes. But that doesn't mean that the taxpayers don't have the information as far as what happened.
So can I just ask one question? So let's say we put 300,000 in and I go up to whatever that number is, 7.2%, whatever. And the budget fails. Am I going to come back to the Board of Finance and you ask me to cut my budget? And I'm going to cut it because I got $300,000 more revenue than I thought I was going to get. So I have to cut my budget now? After coming in with a 3.32 budget and a 1.58, if you didn't include the maintenance, where's that money going to come from when the budget doesn't pass?
Have we never had a project like this in the past? Nothing.
No.
So there were no building permits for the solar farms or the breweries or the wineries or.
Not that required a special building inspector.
What about, we didn't get fees for anything else? Like, so we just took the fees in?
Yeah.
So we just booked the fees
Right.
and we didn't have expenses. So there was nothing to worry about.
Correct.
Yeah, those fees that came in were pushed against the building official that's doing the inspections right now. Which whatever was overage, which seems to be, it's not quite 300,000, it's probably $1,000 or $1,200 goes in as an overage. His salary is less than what they're taking in for permits. Follow what I'm saying?
Over all those projects.
Over all them other small projects, takes in permit fees, then permit fees are against his salary. His salary should be less than what the permit fees are. If they're not, we're in trouble.
We need a full-time person sitting there.
So that, like, back in the 24-25, the $158,000. We had expenses of roughly $150,000.
So when I was somewhere in the last 2 years, came into the Hawker built, which is a pretty big building. 3 buildings being built now, the 3rd building is being built now at Greystone Winery up on Winter Chalk Hill. So yeah, we've had some projects that have added maybe an extra 30 or 40,000 to the revenue line that we didn't expect, but not to the extent of 300,000 or 500,000, but.
And not to the extent where you would have to hire somebody to focus on just that one project.
Correct.
That's where this is different.
And so we've never had to hire a building inspector for any project within this
We've
town.
never had anything with this kind of scope.
Specific to a project. You know, the one thing though about this that I think could get lost in the presentation is how good this is and what a positive thing this is for the town. And if we're going to be seeing this budget increase show, and people could turn on that and say, gee, look at that, it's costing us money. I don't know what we're projecting to collect in taxes against that building, but I'm sure it's going to be substantial. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think EB asked for a tax break in putting this building up. And it is not unusual when a project like this comes to a town that they say, we want you to waive the building fees. That's not unusual.
All EB wants is their building. That's all
That's
they want.
good. They want to be fast and everything, but you know, it's a unique situation that that's the
Of course it
case.
is.
I guess, so if he adds in revenue to the top and takes out expense on the bottom, how does that change the budget increase?
Just what's going to be shown on this front page.
Right.
Is just expenditures.
So we don't have.
And
It's going to show
we don't
something
have a revenue
above
column.
3.32%.
It's the questions on the call. The
questions on the call.
The call says, shall the town spend $6.2 million for government operating? Shall the town spend? And it doesn't say, oh, by the way, we're getting an extra $500,000 in fees from EB. Like, so that's the part that's missing. It's the
I've got an
narrative.
idea.
It doesn't.
Whether the auditors that go along with it, budget the net, which will be a negative number. I know, but you know, that's what's going on. That's the problem.
So regardless of which way this eventually goes, you need to know, I need to know, we need to know exactly how much revenue you're expecting in 26, 27. Okay, so because if it's $500,000 and the expense is going to be $300,000, if it's in the budget, we have to, when we do our presentation on what this thing does, obviously that extra 5 is on the top line. The extra 3 is in your expenditure side. And it's going to positively affect the mill rate. It's going to help us. And if it's outside of, if we do this as a separate question, where you appropriate $300,000 from the undesignated fund, to Sarah's point, if you have a net gain of $200,000 that we're going to realize that isn't going back to the undesignated fund, that should be considered still in that top revenue line to lower the mill rate. Correct, guys? Does that make sense? So regardless how you do it, if it's not going to be in the budget, we still need to know what that net delta is for positive, for revenue to include in this calculation when we set a mill rate. And if it's in the budget, it has to be, we have to know about it because it's going to be part of the conversation of, this is how, I know this number is big here, it's inflated, but we're covering that and then some on the top side.
So I'll give you the new budget with the expense side, the revenue side. You can figure out the difference.
Yeah.
And you'll see the new percentage increase. And you guys on Wednesday, I'll get to you between now and your meeting on Wednesday.
Okay.
Then you can discuss it.
Perfect. That sound good? Because that can, at least when we have that, we know where we are, mill rate wise, given the two new budgets. And we can provide guidance at that time if necessary to either Board of Ed or Board of Selectmen.
And given the reevaluation in those numbers, I think one of the things we should focus on is how much the town will be collecting an additional tax from taxpayers from the mill rate.
Correct.
Because it is not going to be as substantial as I think a lot of people think it will.
Correct.
Because of the assessment.
And we should have your new spreadsheet with the numbers and be able
We'll show that.
to show that. And then we can also look at, those real world examples of what it does to different people who have their valuations percentages changed.
Are you also going to forecast the increase in infrastructure associated with it? Because are you also going to add the increase in
Is your
infrastructure?
mic on, Jerry? I don't know.
It is.
You're just not close. You gotta like,
Is your spreadsheet also going to show the increase in infrastructure associated with this facility? Because this very well may be the building that causes us to get a ladder truck for the reach. The size of the square footprint may cause that upgrade in infrastructure. So before we start saying windfalls, you have to show a balanced perspective.
From my limited knowledge of this building, it won't reach the height. That's the reason why they went wide. They didn't go high, they went wide to meet.
Yeah, but the ladder truck is not necessarily for high, it's for the reach. It's to get water where the fire is. So if there's a
Understand.
fire in the center of the building, they need to be able to get water. I'm just,
Well,
Good points.
No,
they're also
that
gonna-
issue needs to be considered in the capital budget.
Well,
no,
Not-
yeah,
not in
but,
this.
but before we paint too rosy a picture, I think it needs to be balanced. That's all.
so they're gonna have, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, they're gonna have fire suppression, correct? Right, yeah, you have to. It's a commercial building. Just,
Hey, the building will be fully sprinkled and it's gonna have
Exactly.
tanks set aside with water just for the sprinkling system.
all right.
I don't think there's anything wrong with just double checking that we're not incurring any additional costs.
I understand it. It's good to get it all out there because I don't have the drawings in front of me.
All right, and just as an aside, I mean, there is the question of whether or not there's going to be more ECS funding. There's also the question of, is this legislation, the bill that's on the floor with regard to the solar farm change, is that going to happen before we get in front of the town hearing? Because all those things, adding another 16 million back into the grand list changes a lot of stuff. And so it certainly goes to whether or not you're asking for additional, whether we ask for additional reductions in budgets.
So,
And I'm dying to hear back from the state on this. I'm dying to hear back from Jen Line saying it's back in, guys, we're good. So I can finalize this little table in to find out, because if, and also the original number that is in the presentation that she gave us, that one sheet that had the percentages, she wasn't using what Daryl sent to the state last year. So that has to be revised because that 62% increase could be 55%. And it's the information that, how people base where they are, in their assessment increases. I want those numbers to be as accurate as possible. And they're just right now, we're sitting in this holding pattern with the numbers we got.
What's our timeline though? Like, I just like, well, we have to snap a line at some point. So like,
Yeah.
We have a town hearing that we have to present,
right, which is
the 20th
of April.
April.
So we have till when? I mean, we can't be deciding what we're doing on the 19th of April, I'm guessing.
So I have two questions after we address this.
So do we have to just make the call by the 15th?
I think by the 15th, we have to have we're going to be stuck where we
If
are.
we don't have confirmation of revenue.
We are where we are.
Yeah.
We're saying April 15th, April 15th.
Tax day.
That's pencils down.
But guys,
That's
remember,
pencils down.
but that's just for us to go to a hearing.
Yeah.
We have in the past had some changes where things swayed one way or another, coming out of a hearing in those couple of weeks after. It's not a big move for us.
That's true. That's
It's
not
all
bad.
math.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good point.
Yeah. By the time we set a mill rate, we should have everything known.
So Mike, can you clarify? You said 16 million. I've been seeing 14.6 million for solar. What?
The sheet that she sent us originally. That Jen Linier sent to us. She said 16,328,330 dollars was exempted completely off the grant list by that legislation. Had the legislation not passed, personal property grant list would have increased by 1,652,560. So right now, we're showing a 17.23% loss of personal property on our grant list. If that money was back in, we would have had a 1.94% increase in personal property.
Is that after the 70%? Because remember, we don't tax at 100%.
That's what the grant, it's on the grant list. So that's their assessment.
Okay, that's
a 70% appraised value.
So I think that's about a $340,000 increase in the collections. That will
Correct. Something to that, yeah.
It's huge.
It's a third of the mill. All right, so we will be back for budget stuff when you have your information, Bob. And we will provide the Board of Ed with guidance at that time, one way or the other.
You turned it off.
I got it. So if you're going to give us guidance on Wednesday, we're going to meet on the 8th. And then you guys don't have another meeting till the 15th and the town meeting's going to be on the 20th?
We actually, in our budget timeline, this is, right now I have the 15th, that's our next regularly scheduled meeting.
Right.
We have in our who's got the budget calendar on them?
We've been meeting on Mondays, just for you.
But you don't have anything Monday, the 13th? I did check. It's not on the calendar? It's not on the town calendar.
Right now, we would have a special meeting on April 6th. We could have a special meeting on April 8th. That's when you guys meet, right?
We meet on the 8th, correct?
We could meet, what's that, the Monday? That's the Monday? We could meet on the 13th if necessary.
We'll give them the Monday and we'll take the 8th.
No, we're gonna have, we can't change our meeting.
Come on.
Christine's out of town and we need her to
Just move
vote on the
things
budget.
around.
So if we want to make this easy, we could make this super easy. We could push both of these budgets forward to the town and we could get in policy on our undesignated fund instead of staying at a 1909. We could go down to the policy that you guys have at 17%.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Oh, my mic's working. Well, because I feel like we're on a timeline and we're not going to get guidance until Wednesday. And then when are you guys going to decide if, like last year, everybody went into the non-designated funds to help offset the mill rate. And since it's way out of policy at this point, I know that you have 12 to 18 months to spend it. However, when would we consider that instead of coming back with more cuts?
I think, me personally, we're avoiding any use of the undesignated fund for a budget gap filler for as long as I can from now on. We did it 2 years in a row and it gave me agita.
Okay, then how do we get it? Well, not we, how do you get in policy if you're not going to use it for budget gap filler?
We could use it on on capital again.
So is there a possibility of using it on capital again this year to offset the budget that we're all proposing?
This budget reflects a high reduction in capital already because of what we did
Right.
last October.
Right. But it's still out of policy. Like, I'm not trying to argue, I'm trying to clarify that if it's still out of policy, shouldn't we be spending more on capital to reduce that?
We'll probably be addressing that this summer and this fall for sure.
Okay.
But as far as using the undesignated fund to plug a gap right now, unless this budget fails 3 referendums, then you can come back to me and talk about that.
Okay, well, then I'll be back. Well, it's going to pass the first time because we're going to get the people to vote.
So is there any reason we couldn't have the budget discussion tonight, at least in terms of giving guidance?
We can.
Why do we have?
We can.
Okay.
I'm fine with that. I was just waiting for Bob's numbers so I could.
Can we just talk about the timeline for a minute?
Yeah.
So town ordinance says we have a town meeting the first Monday in May, which is May 4th. So we have to work backwards. So we know if it's the first Monday in May is May 4th, it's a town meeting, and I have to advertise it. You have to do it with between 7 and 14 days prior to the meeting. Then on May 16th is the referendum, okay? So again, working backwards, according to the schedule, on April 10th, we're advertising for the public hearing, April 10th. You're talking about meeting April 13th. April 8th, you're supposed to call for a town meeting if you're satisfied with the way the budget sits. So again, and I need time between the public hearing to advertise for a public hearing, and then again, time to advertise for a town meeting. You guys handle the public hearing, I handle the town meeting.
Correct.
So we don't have time to, sounds like we don't have enough time unless we decide that we want to not change the schedule, not do the town meeting on May 4th, push it back, and then push the referendum back. But by town ordinance, we're supposed to have it on not that it's always happened on that day, but we're supposed to have it on the first Monday in May.
I think we're fine keeping the hearing on for the 20th. If we have to have other special meetings, we will, but. Correct.
How long do you have to have, what's the time for that meeting?
It's not the same, it's not like, it's not the same as the town meeting, which is rules with the town meeting.
Right.
Because I have to put in the newspaper, but a public hearing, I think we still have to advertise it, Lou, and it may not be, I'll have to check with Antoinette, knows all the answers to
Yep,
those,
sure.
but I know there's time, and I want to get the sandwich board signs out and make sure that we have attendance at a public hearing. We don't want to call it one day and have it 3 days later, so.
Okay. Fair enough. I just was looking for some guidance.
I remember when we did the public hearing in the library, we advertised it, put it in the paper, and I think it does have to go into the paper for 5 days. Okay.
mean, I can do,
if we're talking roughly that you're having $500,000 in extra revenue and $300,000 in the budget. Oops, I'm in the wrong spreadsheet. Dang it. Since 10. Yeah, we added 500. I already got the 300 down here. Yep. Let's go 19.8. Oops. Zero, 1, 9. Oops. Yeah. I didn't mean to do 09, I meant 09. .11. One, 4. 1, 6. Yep. Okay. All right. How would everyone like to take a 5-minute break? Done. 5 minutes.
Yeah. I got a long piece of water. Even with all of our contractual obligations. But again, but we're stagnant, we're not growing, so we have more to go out.
I saw the for St. Patrick's.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, listen.
yeah, it was,
Somebody has family.
so it's right next to the. Yeah. And they got it. But they.
All right, let's get back on track. So if you add 500,000 to the revenue side for the building permits fees and add 300,000 to Bob's general government budget, you need a mill rate of 20.16. With the grand list we have right now. If you plug that into how that impacts taxpayer, if you guys recall, I had one, it's basically this, the 2024 assessment was 200,000 and so they're all at 200,000 and what the taxes owed for that with the 28.88 mill rate was $5,776. And then I did it where their revals increased 0%, 20%, 47.34%, which is what we're at. That's the bottom net grand list increase this year without the solar. 62%, because that's what we have for information as to what the median increase was. 73%, 100%, 150%, and some people got 200%. So at 20.16, that person who their assessment didn't change is going to pay 30.19% less in taxes. They're going to pay $1,744 less in taxes. If it goes up 20%, they're going to pay $937.60 less, 16.23% decrease. Someone who matched the net grand list percentage increase of 47.34% is paying $164.75 more. 62% increase, they're paying $755.84 more. So that's a 13.09% increase. Someone who got 73%, like myself, $1,199. It's a 20.76% increase. If we went up 100%, it's $2,288 more in taxes. That's 39.61% increase. 150% increase in your assessment, you're paying $4,304 more in taxes, 74.52%. If you have a 200% increase, you're paying $6,320 more in taxes for a 109.42% increase. So that median, which is, I think was, go back. The information we got from Jen was that the median assessment was $292,590. And so that means if they had a 62% increase, their old assessment was 186.11. That person is paying $682 more in taxes. So let's just say the median household is likely to pay something close to $700 in new taxes at 20.16 mill rate. Now, if we had the solar farm stuff back, we would need a mill rate of 19.85. So I really wish we had that back. But still, a person in that median household income of, median household assessment of 292, 590 is going to pay $500 more. We can't help the fact that people's assessment went up. You know, these budgets are not, it is an increase. But to Lou's point, the amount of taxes we're collecting is not a tremendous difference. It's everybody's individual situation is going to, could very much affect them. But that's what we cannot control that. You know, I think we're doing really good work, you know, on Board of Ed side and Board of Selectmen side, and the reality is the reality for a lot of people. Any comments?
So I know you just said like half an hour ago that you never wanted to try to close the gap with the mill rate. But the solar farm is an interesting enough. I think we should talk through that, because there's two possible outcomes. One is they don't fix it and those solar farms never have to pay additional funding again, which feels highly unlikely. Or is it just for 1 year?
No,
It's there.
They'd be off the grant list forever.
Right, it's off the grant list forever.
Currently, they're there, but on paper, they're not there.
Right. So like, I'm just scenario planning. It's possible that would happen. It's also possible that they fix it in the state legislature and at some unknown time, we get that back. Either way, I'm curious about the risk of covering it for 1 year, because we are in a reval year. And if we don't get it back next year, then we solve that problem next year. Because I feel like the likelihood, this has happened not just in our town, right? This is everywhere.
Yes. 6 towns.
But we're the
6
worst
towns.
offended. We're the
worst
worst
impacted.
affected.
I agree with what you're saying, Sarah. You know, this is what the undesignated fund is for, unforeseen conditions. And just back up for a second. My understanding was that this was converting the solar field to payment in lieu of taxes versus the current assessment approach, correct?
They
or
put
not?
the wrong date down.
Yeah, no, I know that, but there's still taxable revenue that'll come in. We just lost this year because they put the wrong date down.
No.
I thought they were converting them to a payment in lieu of tax.
All ones that have come online after July 1st, 2025 will be the payment in lieu of taxes.
The ones that are already there.
It wasn't
they're
supposed to
not-
affect.
they weren't supposed to affect.
Right.
They're not there.
Right. So playing this out and assuming it doesn't happen before we approve the budget to go to vote, and it comes after we approve the budget, if we make the decision to take it out of the undesignated fund and it does get reversed, we just don't, it stays in the undesignated fund. But we're prepared. We're not artificially adjusting the mill rate for something that might not happen. That's where you're going. And I agree with you.
That's a pretty good approach. You could also say, all right, we're gonna pay the capital budget with the undesignated fund this year. You know, it's around the same number, 300 and something $1,000. So you could do it that way too and do the same thing.
But that is paying down debt, but I mean, this is truly an unforeseen circumstance, which is what the undesignated fund policy was adopted for. So,
Okay,
It is
okay,
one-
I'm
it-
feeling what you guys are putting down.
it is one of those things where we're paying down the debt, but it's more on the revenue side, which we've always kind of, I really want to have a better warm fuzzy feeling on where that is in the whole grand scheme of things up in Hartford.
I honestly, I am supremely confident that this legislation is going to change. I am. It's just absolutely, I mean, the thing's already on the floor. They know they messed up. It's not a hard fix. I've read the bill.
I've been disappointed by elected officials before too. So not
I don't
these
wanna-
ones, but
I
I'm
don't want
not
to
trying to
punish the whole
judge.
town, right?
I
Like,
understand. However, I don't want to give a false hope where we go out and we plug the gap and then next year we're still in this, oh, well, somebody's trying to, we're in that weird area again.
yeah, I agree. I think it's just buying us a year. We're just saying we're buying a year to get this resolved. And if it's not resolved, we'll address it.
Lou, can you figure out on 16 million, you have to use a mill rate to calculate how much taxes, how much revenue we would have. Winona?
On 16, just from this worksheet.
Yeah,
Didn't bring my computer.
16 million.
it was 350,000, 340,000,
Yeah,
something like
Depending
that.
on the mill rate, if you're looking at a mill rate of.
Which is fine. I just want to remind everybody,
$31,000.
the author who's revising this or hoping to get this reversed, he's up for reelection, so it doesn't happen. I know which way I'm voting.
That's Connecticut. But yeah, but that's not a number that's so big as to make a huge difference in our undesignated fund anyway. So I think it's a good safety thing to do.
Okay, okay.
I would agree.
So should I plug that number and still plug in 350 or what?
Well, it would
Plug
be,
in, the undesignated line,
if you're at, if the mill rate that you're looking at is 0.02, would you say 16?
yes.
Then it's going to be about $340,000.
All right, 340.
Next time I'll bring my computer.
Oops. Wrong spreadsheet. $19.79.
So correct me if I'm wrong. So am I getting the consensus here that we're gonna go into the town hearing with plugging the revenue shortfall on the solar farm with the undesignated fund right off the bat? And instead of telling the story, hey, this is what's going on, we haven't really figured it out, and then waiting until it probably will happen, which say 65 to 70% chance it could happen. Instead of just telling them, hey, this is the steady state that we're living in right now, instead of kicking it down a couple of weeks. We really don't need this number until we go to the town meeting.
That's correct.
It's nice to talk about it. However, we probably should be talking about the raw number without that. We know what we are right now. It's nice to think about it. However, I have trust issues on some things, and I don't really think that, you know,
we have to consider the fact that we should have $340,000 more of revenue when we're given guidance on whether or not they need to cut another budget. So if you go in with a mindset that either the legislation is going to pass and that 16 million goes back on the grant list and we have 340,000 roughly in extra revenue, or we earmark 340,000 from undesignated right now, pending that legislation passing in order to budget and give guidance right now. I think I don't mind doing that at all. Because like I said, I'm supremely confident that the legislation is going to pass. That, and this, using that money, and you guys are exactly right, is what it's supposed to be for, to lower the mill rate and just to have it be in there for discussions.
So at 340 in, because you and I have been pretty close, at 340 in, the mill rate is at 1982.
I got 1979.
Yeah, okay, so we're close enough to not arm wrestle it yet. Why not? What's your variance? It's all in how much wiggle room you have, but it's close enough.
That's a 1979, right?
I was at 1982 with a variance of $1,700.
Did you use 340,000 in undesignated? What's your general government budget say?
84,90,092,
Yep. Board of Ed?
16,496, 309.
Okay.
Yeah, what's your variance?
$4,062.53.
Oh, yeah, see, I'm at $1,719.
Yeah.
We're slicing pennies here.
Yeah.
John says stop slicing pennies.
So the other thing that I think is interesting is if you look at the 9 years where we under predicted revenue, that averages out to an over collection of 777,000 per year that we're doing every year. So I think I'm thinking about this year and that it's a reval year and whatever we can do to not sort of punish the taxpayers while we wait for some things to fall into place. I think we have that flexibility between the undesignated fund and what revenue we may not be claiming now on our proposed revenue that may come to fruition based on a past history.
Yeah, but normally how you would break that end up cycle of 10 years of over collection is you cut more than you would normally see, and then you would be balanced. Because if the sample is 10 years and you say, hey, over this time period at random different segments, we have overtaxed. And we've also, I remember sitting here 6-7 years ago where we're fighting over $40,000 of, hey, where we're going to come up with it. And then there's always a give back, and there's always another give back, and there's always another give back. And then, when we put those numbers out there, we're telling everybody the numbers that are being portrayed aren't really the actual true numbers, and we're overtaxing you.
Yes, but what I'm talking about over collection. So I am talking about we are not collecting taxes, sorry. We are receiving in revenue that we're not figuring into our budgeting. Like if we're getting about just under $300,000 of extra revenue a year that we didn't know we had,
Mhm.
that's not necessarily that our budgets aren't correct. That's that we didn't know we had that revenue to adjust the mill rate. So we are overtaxing because we are not counting revenue we should be counting.
But there's only two budgets. It's Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen's budget.
I think part of it is, if the tax collector's collecting more than 98.5%, there's no question we're gonna have more revenue.
There's
And
lots.
the, and the,
It doesn't
But
look
that's
like
how we
it's coming
built-
from, it doesn't look like it's coming
It's not.
from the taxes, though. If
No.
you look at the actuals by line item, it's not coming from the big chunk. It's coming from the second section in a lot of times.
which is almost impossible to.
It's impossible to
figure out.
predict.
And that's how
Yeah.
the undesignated fund has grown to the point where it is now. So, I mean, it wasn't a bad thing. And what it did was it's increased our undesignated fund to the point now where we can consider special payments on different things. But that's only because that's what happened. And we didn't budget in for that money to spend it. We didn't
Right.
have it. We're not going to budget to spend it. Didn't
Right.
know we have it.
But, so I'll even point out in that for fiscal year 24-25, we closed out actual revenue at 24,145,000. But for 25-26, our proposed revenue was lesser than that. Which, I mean, there's literally no rhyme or reason that we would collect lesser revenue year over year. There was no driver of that for like looking back at notes, looking back at anything. There was no reason for that whatsoever, but.
The interest income, that might have made that difference.
don't forget, we never accounted for on the revenue side, $100,000 from Ella Wheeler for the last 5 years.
Yeah, that's also, yeah.
That's 100,000, now up to 106,000.
Suggesting like we risk over budgeting year over year over year. I'm just saying this year with the reval, I think it's in our cushion in our, our ability to absorb it if we have to in the undesignated fund and the possibility that we are underestimating our revenue. All of those things feel like we should be able to give back to the taxpayer the best that we can in the lowest mill rate that we can reasonably feel like we can afford.
So the process here with setting the mill rate. No.
We're months away from that.
That's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at. So everything happens long before we come to that point. So we can maybe look at that, have an understanding that that's what we'll consider. But it'll all be driven by what we end up approving for the budget, and then we back into it.
Right.
And by then we shouldn't.
Yeah, but
maybe even
we
know.
normally don't go into a hearing figuring that out. We usually
Do it
give the
later.
we give the raw numbers, and we've dealt with the ECS money and
Yeah.
things come down the line. And then when we go to the town meeting, we have that sharpened
Example.
pencil
Yep.
and say, hey, we're going to do this, this, this. We're going to take this money, do this, and this is what we're proposing
Looking
as a final, if approved. And then it's just a formality. If approved, we just execute the mill rate as written.
As the budget approved dictates.
Correct, because they will already know that we're going to take this much out of the undesignated fund or not. The income is exactly how it's supposed to be. All those numbers are going to be figured out by the town meeting.
Well, the income will be an estimate. The future, I mean, because it
Yeah,
has to
it's-
be.
it has to be.
Right.
It's a little notional in that end.
Yeah. So what do we,
But if ECS comes back with more money after the town meeting, it's extra income that we don't account for in the budget. We would account for it when we set the mill rate after,
In the cycle.
after the referendum.
And it's another one of those, the cycle continues where something changed between that gray area
Right.
and it's just, I think, going to the undesignated fund right now, going to a town hearing, I think it could cloud some things out. We're not to that point yet.
We could be.
No, I agree. We don't have to like decide that tonight. I think I agree with Mike though, in that we need that, to me, whether we would lean towards using that helps me decide in terms of budgets we have before us that we have a room full of people who want guidance on, whether or not it's an appropriate budget or we're going to ask for more impact. So that, I think that's where I'm trying to get to. I'm zooming out to the big picture to say, if we're all generally moving in this direction, then we have that, like, what does the bigger picture look like? So we can make a decision on what we can decide on tonight.
Right. And if I'm going in front of the town, and I would much rather bring them something in the 19s, 19.79 than 20.16.
Yeah.
All day long.
I mean, I guess if what we were given in the beginning of the year is correct, and the median 292, 180 to 292 is correct. If the numbers we were just talking about, the 19.8 number, by using the undesignated fund to help get us there,
Yep.
is still an 11% increase for that median household income in our town, a $583 tax increase. I struggle with anything above 10%. It just feels like a lot to me. I don't know, it's my opinion, but that it feels, to anything above 10% increase feels like a lot to me. And I don't know if it's even possible to get below that. I haven't played with this enough to figure out what we would have to get the budget down to get below that as a median.
I don't think you can use that number. We've been talking about that a little bit. I think this is a calculus problem. Anybody here teach calculus? Got the wrong teachers here tonight. But I don't, because in that case, you're trying to solve for two unknowns, and that just creates a mathematical nightmare.
Okay.
So I don't think you can use the median income from pre-assessment to the median income.
You mean house value?
Yeah.
Okay,
Median house value.
so explain.
No, because it's two different things. It's just two different, you can't do it. It won't translate. And again, I said, I can't show you, but it's because you've actually got four unknowns: the number of houses, the two different medians.
So what would be
actually,
a good
you
way
might-
to get there?
This might be one of those occasions where the average might actually be a better number to work with for that calculation than the median.
Do we have averages?
Once again, this is why.
Because that's what was given to us
If-
by the
if-
assessor's office, right?
If Jen gives us, it's a 62% increase in real estate
That was
from last year's grand list to this year's grand list, and last year's grand list number is like $11 million off from what we budgeted from. So that 62%, that first number, the 24, 25 number is actually higher than what she has on that table. Then the percent of increase is actually going to be less than 62%. So if that less than 62% number goes into that calculation that we have in the bottom, Winona, that 11% number is probably going to be closer to 10.
But again, I don't think that's the right way to look at it, because there's probably nobody going to be in that position. Exactly. Maybe one house would be. I guess what I'm saying is that I think we would, for a reval year, be much better off focusing on how much more in additional taxes we are collecting from the taxpayers. How that shakes out to the individual homeowner, property owner, is got nothing to do with us. That's based on your assessment. If we can look at them and say, because they're all, oh, you're raising our taxes, we'll be able to tell them how much more in tax revenue we're collecting. And I don't think it's going to be a very big number. because of the additional income that has coming in. I think ultimately that's how you sell it in a reval year.
I don't disagree with you that that's a very important message. But they're still going to want to see what does it do for me? And that whoever, if the average increase is 62% from Jen's thing, and that person's got an 11% increase at this 19 point. I'm sorry, wrong one again. Oh, I just changed it, 1997. I was looking at 12%. They're just, if the numbers, the percent change is actually lower, that makes a difference between when you're trying to talk about what it does for that average person.
Right, but that's why I said maybe we need to know the average, because I'm not thinking this median number is going to work. As you can, it's just not going to work.
The median number is only, what is the median household assessment in the town? That's 292, 590.
All that means is that half the houses are valued less than that, and half the houses are valued more than that.
It's right in the middle.
That's all that. So, but then if you take a look at, that's the number of, unless she did it differently, that's the number of houses. Now, the value of the real estate identified to the right side of the median is going to be significantly more than the value of the real estate to the left side. So you're looking at a situation where the people that are in the left side of the median, all of them could be paying less in taxes next year.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, we don't know the distribution of the values. We just know one data point. And I just don't think you can make that work like that.
What's the median number? Like what's the dollar?
The dollar amount is, 292, 590.
And I don't know where did that come from?
That's what the assessor said.
Because that's not even what's on our web page. And median home value on our web page is 319,100.
Is 29? No, that wouldn't be the 70%. That's not 70%. Yeah.
So what are we trying to accomplish here?
I mean, I think what's important is to understand, like, to the average person in town, if we were looking at this new mill rate of 1982, what does that do to their taxes? I think that
Just
that's important.
As an exercise, if Jen's numbers, she uses the actual ones that we used last year, and say the average increase in real estate is 50%, not 62%. So that 292, if their house is 50% more, their old house was 195,000. And they paid at 28.88, they paid $5,633 in taxes. At the new mill rate of 19.97, they're paying $209 more in taxes. That's 3.72. It's a huge difference. So I need that number from Jen, so we can have accurate comparisons as to what that average household increase, what does it do to their taxes? Because it's not 62%, it's got to be less.
So I can give you a formula.
Okay.
So the new real, if you want to figure out what the average neutral mill rate would be for the average person, like from what they're paying at 20, a 28 point, what are we at? 28.88.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's a 62%. If that's correct, we could fix it if it's not. It's basically the new rate divided by 1 plus the percentage. So it's the new mill rate, and that would give us like 17.83. That's the neutral for the average median.
Except they're talking about the average increase, the median number. So you can't do that. It doesn't, and again, I wish there was somebody here that knew calculus, because I don't. But that's not going to work.
So is it possible to ask the two budget holders, the Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen, to go through the budgets and pull out anything that we may have to appropriate for if it comes to fruition, and go about it that way? What would your budgets look like? Take some risk. If it hits and we have to go for an appropriation, we take it out of the undesignated fund at that time. What do those numbers look like? Is that, I mean, that's the same way to get to where you were describing, Sarah, without just blanket pulling it from the undesignated fund now. Ask the budget holders to show, where's the risk, and if it comes to roost, we appropriate.
No, I don't, I'm not a fan of that one.
Okay.
Well,
I mean, that's just
we're in such a
we-
short time period with only 4 or 5 days to get this done, to give them direction of what to do. We need to give them an idea. If they could have an idea to do that, whether we have to do it or not. I know nobody's fond of it, but
Guys,
unless you move the date of us,
we just have to get to the hearing and let everybody hear everything out. Just get to the hearing.
well, then you got to tell them, yes, we take care of it, or send them back.
But
and we
they're
gotta
gonna run the, but here's the thing, it's a double-edged sword. You run the risk of, if there is a huge outcry from taxpayers of saying, this is too much, well,
Then we'll have to deal with it.
then we have to deal with it at that point.
The
What are they
story now-
measuring?
The story now is without, except the 300,000, it's less than a 2% increase year over year. I mean,
Yeah, but
that-
they're asking, everybody's wants the 300,000 in there, which bumps that number.
well,
quite a bit.
Okay,
not
but-
everybody.
But
I
what,
think that's a
what
mistake.
what are we, what are the
But that's
tax,
what's going to happen. That's what's going to create a problem.
what are the taxpayers benchmarking, this is too much, or this is okay against?
Well, if you got 200%. It really depends on what your assessment, what happened to your assessment. You know, it's,
So we're gonna ask them to do their own math without a mill rate, without, like, what, I mean, so what, are like,
no, when I do the presentation, I always say this is, with these numbers, this is what it would look like for demonstration purposes only.
And that's why I said, we don't want to, I don't want to use the word artificially inflate or however we want to, by just giving the raw number out there. It's like, hey, this is what it is, without the undesignated fund, without, the solar farm, everything. This is what your taxes are going to be. However, these could fall out and it could get better in a couple of weeks or could not. Remember, it's our meeting to run. We can kind of shape that narrative however we want. I don't want to go out in front of the taxpayer and saying it's all roses and then find out a couple of weeks later, well, it's not.
So we should go into that meeting with a very conservative outlook.
I would say that, yeah, I would say the
Right.
conservative outlook would be the worst case number and saying, hey, this is what your number could be.
Based on the note, based on the budgets that we've had presented tonight, except for the 300, we'd be asking them for roughly 2% increase in town spending, expenses. And that doesn't take into consideration additional income that we know we're getting, which would actually have an impact of lowering that.
what income that we know we're getting that is not included?
Well, the 500,000, well, yeah, with a net of 200,000.
No, that's in Mike's numbers now.
No.
No.
Yeah, that's in this 19.8.
The 200 plus? that we're gonna
Yes.
benefit-
Yeah.
Yes.
That was in there?
Yes.
My mistake.
Which
Yeah,
we really
yes, it
haven't,
is.
which we haven't really shook out yet on how that number is going to equate into the budget yet.
So with
Half of
that,
us are and half of us aren't.
right.
You almost had, I'm telling you guys, you're gonna have to go into this meeting.
It's almost,
with,
it's like
"Hey,
you need a
this-
waterfall.
This is the worst case. However, if you do this and you do this and you do this, this is what it could be. And go from there. Yes, it's gonna be one of those meetings where everybody's gonna have to follow the bouncing ball, but
That doesn't seem.
I think we should have a plan. Like,
Sure.
I think it should be.
tell me the plan.
So it can be, here's where we are. We are optimistic that we can get X, Y, and Z revenue because of mistakes that were made that they're in the process of fixing. However, and we are planning, if that doesn't happen, we are going to factor that into the mill rate reduction this year. And if it doesn't happen, we will plug that with the undesignated fund. Because that's what it's there for. Because we're buying time to make sure that we get we're not overtaxing people. Because the alternative is we tax them at an assumption that we're not getting that revenue, and then we get potentially that revenue, and now we've overtaxed them in a reval year. That's my concern.
So what we're,
The proposal is to keep 340,000 because it's coming from the increased net grant list.
Right.
Or it's coming from the undesignated fund. For now, until that legislation passes. And you say, here's what it is, here's 0.97. I'm still gonna, and Susan throws on this too, trying to get from Jen Langweaver what those numbers are. So I can address Renora's issue, but that percentage of what your increase is, is it less than 10? And hopefully, I think it can get less than 10. I just can't say for sure right now, but I think the numbers, because they are what they are, what Daryl sent into the state last year was 645, and she's got written in there 635. So it's another 10 million that should be somewhere in last year's numbers. So the percent increase on real estate was not as much, 62%. It just wasn't. But I think the plan using the undesignated fund to fill a gap that I think is going to be changed with that legislation is not a bad idea.
can I,
Yeah.
I think I agree. And I'll just throw it out there. Can we do something like that? With the building, with the EB building and the fees that
He
we're gonna
did.
collect?
He put it in there.
Pardon?
He
No,
did.
No,
The 200,
not included.
I mean, do what Bob wanted to do.
Yeah.
didn't you put it in there or no?
It's in there right now.
He put in a $500 revenue minus a $300,000 expense. So it's,
That's factored into what my mill rate.
Okay. I understand it, but Bob's budget's gonna show a 10% increase.
oh,
Yeah, but to quote you, Lou, I'm not a fan of that.
Well, that's okay. Just,
Mike or Sarah, is anyone familiar with like a waterfall approach where you kind of like start with something and
Yeah.
it's
Here's the
incrementally, so
gap.
it like shows
Yeah.
you like this, if we do this, the mill rate goes down. If we do this, the mill rate goes up, and it's like step by step. Is that,
Like stocks, like.
yeah, kind of like if we get the 16, if we fix the solar problem, we can lower the mill rate by this much. If we, take if we don't, we take the 340 out of the undesignated fund, then we have to do this. Like we can walk them through like step by step.
but ultimately, we're gonna have to tell them, this is what you're voting.
yeah, we have to.
You have to say,
We have a
this is the
plan.
number.
Yeah, we have to like get to the end and say, this is what we've decided we
Yes.
want to present.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have think so? Do you have think so? That's how you make the waterfall charts.
Well, I mean, I don't know what we're presenting yet, so.
All right, well, it's getting, we're at 9:45 here, guys. So at a 19.79, is that what it was? Yeah.
I'm at 1982. is where I'm at with a variance of $1,719.
Over or under?
What,
Over.
what, let me ask you this, what is your additional taxes? I got 433,000, 75,000, 4,536,792,
Yep.
31, 345,602.
Yep.
1,065,535
Ooh,
and
I-
106,
Yeah, I don't have that. I
669.
have 103,535.
Should be 106,5.
Okay, I'm missing 30 something somewhere. I don't
Because
know.
we added 500,000 to the old number.
Okay. Got it.
So with that in mind, I'm just going to entertain, a discussion on guidance. The 2.74, this is the Board of Ed. Bob's already done his cuts. I don't think there's any additional cuts to be done there, and particularly if he has to throw another 300,000 onto his budget. It's up for discussion as far as guidance is concerned at this point, with that 19.97, which is, I think, a sellable number. Like I said, we can't control what the reval did to your particular situation. I just know that this is we're not collecting really any more taxes than we did last year, particularly if we use the undesignated fund, because that number includes using 340 from the undesignated fund, which is also a good selling point to the town, saying, look at, we're doing this for you. It's sellable, so
So year over year, we average about, it's actually like a 2.99% revenue increase to the town. They're collectively coming in at 2%, which is still leaving room, so we're not absorbing the entire increase with the budget. I think it's a reasonable approach.
all right, so you're saying 2.74 is under the 299, we're.
No, I'm saying the total
Oh, the total.
revenue budget increase that we average from actual is year over year is 2.99%.
Yeah,
The total that they're asking for between the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, so the Board of Ed's increase of 2.7 plus the Board of Selectmen's increase total, that is actually only 1.98% of the revenue. So there's a whole percent of revenue that we're pushing into the mill rate.
Yeah, but
Based on that.
is that adding the 300,000 that he has to put on the budget?
That is without that.
That's without that, okay.
That's without the additional revenue. So I'm not counting the 500,000
okay.
revenue
Right.
and the
But
other
you're also not-
340.
You're also not
So-
adding the 3.
Right. So what I'm saying is like when you compare an average year over year, 3% increase, we're consuming 2% of that increase.
Okay. That's good information.
We gave soft, non-biting guidance to the Board of Ed.
Correct.
They didn't hit the number. I would like to see what a 0% increase budget looks like. I want to see it. I'm not, Judy, I'm from Missouri. Show me. I would like to see what it would look like. I don't understand why we may not act on it, but I'd like to know what it impacts.
Just by way of procedure here. Are we going to come to a conclusion about what we want to do before we ask them to do something? I mean, I appreciate that that's what you want to do, but.
Yeah,
but that's not the-
I thought this was an open forum for what kind of guidance we'd like to provide.
It is.
Yeah.
I think we're saying Judy can sit because we're
Yeah.
still talking.
Go ahead.
Well, even though the guidance was not valid, when you average it all out, we came out with 1.36. Even though, it was a straw poll and everything, that's kind of where we came out. I'm just not agreeing with Gary, but I'm just saying, you know,
Well, in
It's-
the
it was
interest
out
of
there.
time, should we just poll the members and see what we're
I'm,
thinking?
I'm, you know what? I'm not done. I'm not polling.
Or voting?
Go ahead. You can do whatever you want. I'm not going to go down the line and say, hey, this is, and you, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? I'm done doing that.
Well, then what are we doing here?
Go put a motion out.
There you go. Put one out.
Why do I have to go do it?
I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Selectmen budget is, I think for the Board of Selectmen, we should be adjusting the revenue and the expense to account for the building permit and building inspector fees with no additional changes outside of that.
I'll second that motion.
All right, no discussion on that. No discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
How many was that? Just raise your hand for me. All opposed?
Okay. So that pushed, right?
It's pushed.
Okay.
I feel like we can have further discussion on that on Wednesday.
I won't be here, just so you know.
Oh.
I'm going to be at Universal Studios. So I'm not really in a spot where I can join.
On the luge.
Mhm.
I need the other one.
Don't we need?
I'll make a motion to the Board of Ed maintain their budget at 2.74%.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. How many? We got 3. Opposed? Got 3. Anyone else have a motion? What's that?
Unless we come up with something else, the only other motion I can think of is to adjourn.
Well, we don't have anything to talk about with Wheeler. That's off the agenda anyway. Minutes we can bump to Wednesday for sure. So.
Any other motion to move this along? Or give some guidance?
I make a motion that the Board of Ed reduce their budget to 1.5%. So this is,
We have a second.
greater than the average that we had come up with individually last week.
Do we have a second? No second. I'll make a motion that request the Board of Education to show us what a budget at 2.5% would be. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Would it clarify what you mean?
Reduce the budget to another, to 2.5% from 2.75.
Can I add something to yours? A fix of focus.
Okay.
Line 14, central office salaries.
We can't, but we can't do
Why
that.
not? Why not?
We can't line item.
I could say a focus. I didn't say, look, I said a focus. That's why we reduce regular education teachers. That was a change from last one, right? I think central office needs to have a look at.
That's. And you're welcome to give that guidance. Yeah.
It's a focus area that we would like for you to look at. If the regular teachers have reductions, central office should also have a look at a reduction of some sort. I'm not saying that's an area they have to focus in on, but that's an area.
All right, so my motion was 2.5. Dan, you were second on that?
Mm-hmm.
Any further discussion on that? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-2.
I do want to say one thing. I see the signs in the crowd. However, this budget would be better if people call Hartford and tell them that action needs to be taken on certain items where money is still being out in the ether and it needs to be acted. So I see your signs. However, action needs to be taken. And it's best that you call up the Hartford and let them know.
Anything further on draft budgets and? All right, moving on to Wheeler Library, that's tabled. Review minutes is tabled. Public comment. Nicole?
They gotta push button, the big one. Push the big button. There you go.
Wow, big meeting, long meeting. I don't know how many Board of Finance meetings I've listened to when the guidance is given to the Board of Ed to look at their non-lapsing and to use it. I also, in looking around, and Bob has also looked around, looked at other towns' budgets that they're proposing to their communities. And a 1.9%, 1.98% increase is like unheard of. Unheard of. You're now giving, first of all, I just want to go on the record and saying that the Board of Selectmen, and I'm not speaking for them, but we'll go back and we'll take a look and we'll present to you numbers, and including the $500,000 revenue for EB and the $300,000 for the building official. However, the optics of that is going to be incredibly difficult. And I'm not belittling the community in what they can absorb and understand. But anybody that's going to look at that percent increase is going to struggle. And it's going to be a struggle for us and you in that hearing to help everybody understand that. I want to go on record in encouraging you to think about that $300,000 as an appropriation from the undesignated. This is an out of the ordinary expense. This is an unprecedented building in town. It is a perfect example of what we should use and ask for an appropriation. And then when the building permits come in, it goes right back into the undesignated. That is what our auditor says. As long as they can track it, it's on the up and up. So I just ask you to please consider that. Going back and asking the Board of Ed to make more cuts when we have more money in our undesignated than we should, to me seems disingenuous that you guys ask them to spend down their non-lapsing. I'm asking you to put forward the 2.74 that they put forward, put it through to the hearing, and use our undesignated in the way that we are supposed to. And that is literally just bringing it down to the high part of the percentage in our policy. And that really could be up for discussion, what that range is. Use that money and put both budgets forward to the hearing as is. I thank you for your dedication. I thank you for all of the time and effort that you put forward, because I know that each and every one of you have what is best for our residents, which includes everybody in this room. But please put forward both budgets as is. 1.98 is unheard of. Thanks.
Thank you, Nicole.
Should still be on.
Sean Murphy, 23 Kingswood Drive. I asked that the Board of Finance look at the short-term interest line in revenue. We have a $75,000 projected in here for next fiscal year. I left the position as treasurer in November, and at that time, I had over $100,000 in interest earned. If you double that, $200,000 a year. That was at 3.5%. Right now, we're at 3%. I think he could generate more than 75,000, and that $125,000 is still a conservative number to have in that line. So it would be if the selectmen could meet with the first selectman can meet with the treasurer and relook at that. I think it's quite obtainable to get $150,000, even though he's got a lower interest rate to earn on. Thank you.
And I'm all for that. If you can do it, put it in your budget.
Michael Noonan, 32 Meadowood Drive. I just wanted to make a clarification for a comment that was made early in the meeting where Mr. Rathman made some comments about what he thought were some added teaching positions over the course of time, and specifically had mentioned what he thought was a third music teacher that was added, and that is a false comment. I was the third music teacher when I was hired in 1999. So there have been 3 music teachers in the district since 1999. And I worked for 23 years here in the district, retired in 2022. And in that 23 years, there were multiple turnovers of music teachers. And specifically in the last couple of years, there were multiple turnovers of teachers. So maybe that's where the misinformation was thought, that there was an added teaching position. But there are only 3 teachers in the music department, and that has been the case since 1999. Just wanted to clear up.
Thank you so much. Any other public comment? Brian? You're on the clock. I'm not kidding.
I hear you. Okay, if I gave you some wrong information about that, I apologize. My other comments about teachers, if you go back 5 years, it was quite, I think it was 5 or 6. When COVID first started, there were teachers that were added. There was a psychological, I believe, added. What was the other one? I don't know, it's psychological, and there was another one. I know I get them all mixed up, but the state paid for 2 years of it, and they're still here, from what I understand. COVID's been over, as I mentioned, and if you go back to the technology software back to 23, 24, right up to now, there's quite an increase in the technology in the software and the budget. So that's where I come from on that. If you want to add them up, there's the figures here. And like I say, I think as a taxpayer, when I go to a hearing, and I think you mentioned it, Mike, I would like to see some kind of new rate would help me figure things out too. And I'm sure you will do it. The Board of Finance has been excellent on stuff like that. I'd like to find out what's going on, and maybe I wait to the Board of Selectmen meeting for that on line item B 2319. Money we gave out, and I just don't know where it went, or what's the status of it, I should say. And as far as the reval goes, I worry about our farmers, because I think their reval might be higher than a lot of people's. I'm not positive. I'll see if I can check into it. But if we lose our farmers, everybody loves the agriculture in our town, so they say, but we just got to get those numbers down as low as we can. And of course, I always can find something, but that's,
thank you, Brian.
That's the way it is. My time up.
Thank you.
Not by much, but
Winona Burdine, 216 Cossatic Hill Road. I'm here tonight to address a couple of comments that I heard once last year and once last week that I feel is personal, so I wanted to get this out. So there's roughly 2,100 households in our town and 700 students. So about 30% of our households send kids to school, which means that the other 70% of our households do not have children in our school. A lot of our board members may not have kids in our school. In 2023, more than half of American households were childless. Roughly 20% of those were childless due to infertility. At 19, I was diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis. I was robbed of the opportunity to send a child to Wheeler. It was not my choice. I have been moving a gift that I received my first Christmas in 1976, a rocking chair that I wanted to rock my babies in and my grandbabies. And I have moved that rocking chair with me for now 49 years. And it sits empty as a reminder on Cossatic Hill Road that I am childless. But that does not mean that I do not care about the children that you teach every day. It does not mean that I did not want to be a mom or a grandmom. And when I hear people say that I don't care about kids or that people on boards that don't have children don't belong, I take that personal. And I wanted to address that. We don't make people that live on roads that belong with letters pay for the highway department. People that live on 216 and 49 and 184 and Route 2, we all pay for the highway department. We don't make the people that only call 911 pay for the fire department and the ambulance department. We all pay for the emergency department because we're a community and we're here together and we're here to be North Stonington residents because that's what we are and that's who we are. And I am here because I was elected to do what I think is good for every taxpayer, not for a group of people. I am here to do what I think is best for all of us. You may not all agree with me sometimes, but as a taxpayer, I'm here to represent everybody, not my own best interest, not somebody else's best interest, not a niche. My rocking chair sits empty. I was gonna bring it here tonight to show it to you, but I couldn't. And if my voice cracks, I'm sorry. This is something I've carried with me since I was 19 years old when I got that diagnosis, but I will not let anyone here in this room or on that video or anyone across the street tell me how I feel about being a mom or how I feel about children. I'm going to set the record straight here tonight. That was robbed from me, and it's been robbed from a lot of women in this country and in this town. So before you cast some opinion, think. To sit on a board, whether it's this one or the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Ed or the EDC or any of the other boards and commissions in this town, it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy. We don't do it because we have time to spare. We do it because we care. Think about that. You're here tonight because you care about those kids. You're holding up signs. We're here because we care too. And I want everybody on this video recording to hear my message because it hurt me last year and it hurt me last week. My voice may waver, but hear me. I'm here because I love North Stonington, and I will continue to fight for what I think is right for this town. But at the end of the day, I will also fight for myself. I am sorry that I took more than 2 minutes, but thank you.
Railing.
Anyone else? I didn't think so.
Motion adjourned.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for staying this late.